Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Xbox2+1 with me, Jez Corden of WindowsCentral.com, and joined, as always, by the man with a million, Randolph419. How you doing, Rand? My old pal.
You gotta love your American accent.
Yeah, well, you know, with losing our Manscaped friends, that's the only place you're going to hear it for a while, I think, unless we get another sponsor.
No. Manscaped. Pour one out for Manscaped. With us for 3 years. Yep. But the journey eventually has to end.
It does. You know? It does. There's only so many testicular shaving implements you can sell, I suppose. But yeah, they're really good to us. But it's the 26th episode of Xbox 2+1. Super duper extra show exclusive on patreon.com/XB2, at least for a few days before it goes public. You can sign up there if you are listening to this later on Spotify and so on. But we are joined today by an illustrious special guest, none other than Xbox 2 faithful, our friend, our beloved Special Nick of XboxEra.com.
Guys, how are you?
Yeah.
You all right? Why are you talking like
is this
that,
finally been able to talk, cross this off your bucket list now? That John was on and now you're on, so it's everything's kosher.
Yeah, that's right. I had 2 weeks off, and this was like first thing. I went up to you and I said, I've got 2 weeks off. This is your chance. This is how I get on.
Oh yeah, because it's the whole time zone thing, right? What time is it there for you right now?
7 a.m.
That's early, man.
7 a.m. the next day, because it's
not
2 p.m. here in the land of the U.S. in Central Time Zone, so it's already the next day for Nick. Out there battling spiders and snakes and kangaroos.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, always, every day.
Always, every day?
Yeah.
I was actually...
Why do you talk like that, Jez? Tell me.
Like what? British?
That American accent. Why do you do that?
I don't know. It's my performing voice, man. I think like when I was in a band when I was a kid, and I sang in an American accent as well. It's like my performing voice. I don't know why. It's just like as like when you're a British kid or maybe even an Australian kid to some degree. A lot of the TV you end up watching is American. So
yes, that's right.
So I don't know. It's like you just end up speaking and singing American by accident. I don't know. But yeah, and also nobody wants to hear a Birmingham, West Midlands accent. Let's be real.
You reckon?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, man. Does Australia have like a wide variety of accents, or is it just like the one?
No, we do. Technically, we do. But it's funny. My daughter, when she was a lot younger, she's like 13 now. But when she was a lot younger. She used to watch a lot of YouTube Kids, and of course was watching a lot of those American, YouTube Kids that play with toys and all that sort of crap. And man, she was just starting to develop an American accent. And I was like, what the hell? She started going like water and like just saying certain words with that American twang to them. And I'm like, oh God, we've got her on YouTube way too much. We have to take her off now.
It's very funny because my friend's kid, Gembox360, his dad, sorry, got genders mixed up, is from Ireland. So like some of the words he says are Irish and some of the words he says are Warsaw. It's really, really strange. And then you'll get like the YouTube American accents coming out sometimes. It's a strange one, man. But yes, accents are all fun. But this is the reason why we couldn't get Nick on earlier, because we do get asked a lot to bring you on, to be fair. But it's all the weird time zones. Like for me, it's 9 p.m. And for Rand, it's like what?
2 p.m. for me.
2 p.m. And then the show is like 3 p.m. ET. We go live, and it's all weird and messed up. So, yeah, we get
it's
there.
It's not just that, though. Like, 7 a.m. is technically not that early for me. The issue is, normally right now, I would be starting work. I start work at 7 a.m.
What is your job? What is your job? Because
he's a graphic designer like Colt.
Oh, really?
No, I used to be. I used to be a graphic designer once upon a time. I do something else, but I will be upfront and say it's not something I say publicly.
He works for the
You got an OnlyFans.
CIA version of whatever they have in Australia.
I should start an OnlyFans though.
So Rand's mind went to CIA, and my mind went to OnlyFans. I don't know. I don't know what that says about us. But that's interesting. That's interesting. Mysterious. Nick doesn't want to say what his day job is. That's intriguing.
No.
Does Australia even have a security service?
Yeah.
Do they even have a military?
Sure.
Or do they just send Britain to do everything? You know.
No, we do. But half of it's made up of all the dingoes and the kangaroos and stuff.
Well, Nick, we don't appreciate stereotypes on this podcast. Thank you very much. But
okay, sorry.
So, what do you want to talk about first? I mean, it's an interesting time in Xbox land. It's
you can talk. What about the history of XboxEra? Why
Everyone
did it
knows
start?
that by now, don't they?
Well, I mean, some people don't know it. I mean, I'm sure Jez doesn't know why or when or
I fully
whatever
don't
reason
know. No, I don't know.
XboxEra started, where splintered off from.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. So give us the life history of XboxEra. How did it all start? Because it kind of obviously it's got some tie to Reset Era, right?
Favorite place, Jez. Nick's favorite.
Fucking hate that website, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's it's a scum of hive and villainy. I was going to say
there's some good people there in the Xbox thread.
Yeah, there's a few
there
holding down the fort, but not many.
And I learned a couple of things at Gamescom too, by the way. But yeah.
Oh, drama.
Not that so much, but I might have bumped into someone over at Gamescom, one of the rare people from Resetera that actually likes me, but he doesn't like to publicly say he likes me because of how that place is.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah. He's like, no, I think you're really cool, but like, I'm not going to say that on Resetera because, you know, then
you're villain number one. Because anytime Nick has a leak,
hated.
They're just like, yeah, he's not trustworthy. Although, I mean, even on Reddit, you're kind of like in the middle pack of the list. Yeah, they don't like you. Yeah. But Fortnite, man, you're up there. Fortnite, you're like the number one leaker.
Fortnite, I'm a big deal in Fortnite. Haven't you heard?
Yeah, big deal in Fortnite.
Oh yeah. I'll take that because that's one of my favorite games.
It's so annoying. Like, I feel like these websites, like, they don't like it when you share an opinion. They want you to just be 100% news based. So, like, when you share opinions and speculation, it's like, oh, but they speculated this and it was wrong, or they conflate it. They conflate it with a report when it's really just speculation, and then they say, oh well, you know. And they do it. Yep. So many people do it in bad faith, and then there's enough stupid people who believe the people who are doing it in bad faith that it becomes this sort of whole thing. Well, I guess that's just the internet in general, right? It'd be 10 times worse if we were politicians, I would think, in that arena. But
probably,
yeah, it is what it is. But so how did XboxEra all start? Like, how did you guys meet? Because, like, obviously, you're all in wildly different countries, and it's a bit of a weird one. So give us a quick rundown.
Okay, for those who don't know, and for those who do, I apologize for the boring long story. But for those who don't know, so obviously everyone knows the shithole that is Resetera. And make sure you pronounce it Resetera because that's how you pronounce it. It's not Reset Era, it's Resetera.
I call it Reset Era.
Yeah, I know, but it's actually Resetera, as in a play on etc.
Yeah, which only happened, which was born off of the ashes of NeoGAF.
NeoGAF, yeah. So obviously everyone knows Resetera, and then within the Resetera community, there was the Xbox community, which was called XboxEra. You know, and they had PlayStation Era and Nintendo. It's just like the nickname they all gave themselves. But as anyone who's used the Resetera knows, trying to talk Xbox on that forum is like pulling teeth. It's not a pleasant experience.
Nope.
It's just shit. So someone started a group Twitter DM. Just a couple of those forum posters started a group Twitter DM, and it grew fairly big. And then someone in there was like, why don't we start a Discord? Have you guys heard of this Discord thing? I'm like, what the fuck is Discord? And that's how I discovered Discord, that back in like 2018. And one of the blokes in there started the Discord, and, you know, again, it grew slowly. It just started as this little thing from the forum. And it kept growing. People that wanted to escape Resetera kept joining the Discord. And it grew and grew and grew. After about 6 months, the dude that started that Discord handed it over to me. And then because some of the people from Resetera, as you know, are also devs. So some of them started to join the Discord. And then me being such a shallow person with a lust for like celebrities and fame, I started going out of my way to get like famous people in the Discord. So I kept just harassing devs and all these sorts of people to come into this Discord so I could tell people how cool my Discord is because I've got famous people in there. And obviously the crowning achievement was getting Phil in there. And
poor Phil.
Yeah, he's posted once, literally once, and that's it. He's got like 1 million emojis under his post because everyone was so excited to hear him talk. Or read him talk, I guess.
I'm sure he reads it sometime.
And then he probably does. Maybe that's why I get in trouble. And one day I was like, man, I wouldn't mind doing. I'd always thought about doing a podcast. And then one day someone on our Discord reached out to me and was like, oh, there's this dude that's still on the forum. He hasn't joined the Discord, but he's talking about doing an Xbox podcast as well. Now, this was obviously John. And I'm like, okay, let's get him in the Discord. So we did, got John in the Discord. He and I started chatting, and it literally the podcast started there. That was just us getting John into the Discord and deciding to start an Xbox podcast. And that was like, I want to say July 2019, something like that was the first episode. And we started doing the podcast. And again, through the Discord, thanks to having devs in there, we had like, Adam Isgreen from Microsoft, like 5th episode of our podcast. We were like so stoked that we had a developer from Xbox on our show. But those early episodes are very hard to watch. And it just, the podcast just grew from there. And I'm not going to lie, like what really sort of accelerated it was the leaking stuff.
Now we know why you did it. Now we know. The truth comes out.
I've been very upfront about that, of course. Because it was starting to become a crowded space and there was already established players like yourselves. I'm pretty sure you were before us.
Yeah, I think we started podcasting in 2017.
Yeah. So, And I'm like, man, how do we try and grow this a bit more? And we tried, we were trying all different little things, like little segments and games and all that sort of stuff. And then one day out of absolutely nowhere, someone reaches out to me on Twitter, who I won't name because they're still one of my sources to this day. Nearly 6 years later, they're like, watch the show. You seem like a nice guy. And they're like, do you want me to leak you stuff? I was like, what? Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah. Do you want me to just like, they're like, I don't want to be one of these people, but do you? Now, of course, in hindsight, would I do it again? I'm not sure, because what they warned me at the time, they said, just to let you know though, before we start anything, the reason I don't do this myself, because I've asked them before, why don't you just do it yourself? They go, I don't want the shit that comes with this. They go, there's some serious shit is going to come from this, and like people are going to hate you and they're going to give you crap and you might get in trouble and this, that, the other. So just warning you in advance. Me being me, I was like, no, bring it on. Not a problem. First ever leak. You can go to the episode because I timestamp everything. First ever leak. Now, again, I was new, so I was still figuring out how to do this. So my first ever leak was on one of our earliest episodes where I speculated, that's how I did it, because again, I didn't know how else to do it. So I speculated that, hey, do you guys remember Resident Evil 3 Remake, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember.
And before Resident Evil 3 Remake was announced, they had that weird multiplayer thing.
Oh,
that Resident Evil multiplayer thing.
Hated that.
And, my source at the time told me, well, that's really the multiplayer for Resident Evil 3. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They're like, so sort of maybe find a way to mention that. And that's what I did. Like I was speculating. I was like, oh, what if this multiplayer thing is really just the multiplayer for Resident Evil 3? That was like one of the first things. And then there was something about Wonderful 101 having a Kickstarter to be on other platforms. And it was just these little things bit by bit by bit. And then I think the big one was Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation Plus. And I think that's when it sort of really took off. And mind you, fun fact and side note, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation Plus that the fanboys are currently modifying those tweets to make it look like I said Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to Xbox.
Yeah, but guess what? You're going to end up...
Yeah,
those
that's
tweets
going to end up being correct,
right,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if I'll get my flowers for apparently being right for something I never said. And that it was with the leaks that it kind of started to grow the most, unfortunately. And I say that unfortunately because if I'm being honest, I'm sort of starting to realize that we've been put in a weird spot now at XboxEra. Like the leaks are what sort of grew everything. And it's almost like we're pigeonholed now. So the leaks are what grew everything, but it also sometimes gets us in trouble. It also sometimes gets us alienated. But then at the same time, most of our biggest episodes are those episodes and all that sort of thing. So we're in this very weird spot because of that.
It's true. Like it can't.
You know what I mean?
It can't be everything you do. Like I learned this early on. Like when I was doing it, and luckily I didn't start out leaking. Like I started out as someone who was just like analyzing, really trying to explain what Xbox is doing. Because my whole thing was I started because I really hated the misinformation that YouTubers were putting out there about the Xbox DRM thing, right? Because I was like, well, this is cool, actually, because 10 people will be able to own it. You know, the thing that everyone loves about Steam now, the family sharing stuff, the digital licensing stuff, all that stuff, that's what Xbox was trying to do with their platform. And I was trying to explain that. And that's how I initially got noticed. But then I started getting leaks as well, similarly to you. Like, people were reaching out like, oh, we like your stuff. I want to, you know, give you some extra context, you know. The problem is that, like you say, it can get you in a lot of trouble. Not just like piss people off, like, you know, famously Obsidian blacklisted me.
Trouble.
But cease and desist letters. We've had cease and desist letters from studios, publishers, companies, and
I haven't got that yet.
Yeah. So even we had one last week actually. Oh
really?
Yeah, for something.
Jez is also. This past Sunday, Jez was literally about to leak the secret game. Just not even gonna just tap dance around it, like literally give the name and everything. And I had to convince him not to.
Yeah, Rand.
I always end up. He's like, I'm gonna leak it, and I'm like, bro, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe you shouldn't.
I got banned from doing it. Jesse and John were like, don't you dare. Now, don't say why, because that's you know, something else.
But no, yes. Like Jez was like, I'm writing the article now. I'm like, Jez, just take a step back, take a breath. Like you literally said on Twitter, you weren't gonna do it. You know,
no,
like,
you're right. Like
it's like, don't do it. Like you could tease it, which is what you did because you said a legendary Japanese IP, which sort of pigeonholes kind of what the game is, anyways.
There's a lot of legendary Japanese.
There's a lot of legendary Japanese.
I know, but I mean, but it narrows down the guesses because on Friday when we talked about this, I said I couldn't even guess because I knew what the game was, and like you, Nick, sometimes I will give predictions. But the predictions will be exactly what it is. But, you know, I pepper it in there with things that are wrong. Because I don't want to always be like, well, every time Rand says something is correct when it comes to that stuff. It's like, no, it's like certain things. But with this one, I couldn't even like give a you know, whatever. Because like, well, why is he saying that? It would be like, oh, well, that's too on the nose. Like, you know, so... Yeah, Jez has come to me so many times in the past. He's like, I'm leaking it, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, dude.
You know, when him and Grub were doing their leak off between like who's gonna leak Project Typhoon and then the South of Midnight and all these games, and like and then it's funny because Obsidian and Josh Sawyer don't like you because of something Jeff Grubb leaked and something Jeff Grubb said about Pentiment that they think you said because Josh Sawyer because Grubb said it was a Disco Elysium like game. You said it was a murder mystery, like a medieval murder mystery.
Absolutely,
and their PR and their stuff hated the Disco Elysium stuff, and they all thought it came from you, so they blacklisted you.
Yeah.
And you didn't. You weren't even. You were the one who didn't even say it.
They were also really pissed because I shared the art assets.
The
unfinished art assets. So like that was like a big no sharing the unfinished stuff because gave people a perception of what the game might look like before they were ready to show it. So like I completely hold my hands up about that. That wasn't cool to do, and I haven't done it since. But it's like you say though. There's not exactly a course you can take on how to be a leaker or how to handle some of this stuff. Especially when now I'm in a corporate environment and I've got targets and I got higher ups breathing down my higher ups' necks about delivering a certain amount of traffic. It makes it tough sometimes when you've got information will get clicks, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is keeping the lights on, paying people's bills, paying people's salaries and stuff. And I'm like, now I'm executive editor, I'm kind of responsible for that. Like back in the day when I was just like a random writer, I had no anxiety about any of this stuff or keeping the lights on. But now now that I'm kind of responsible partially for the success of the site, it's sort of fractious sometimes, but we're up 48% today, so I'm nice and relaxed right now. So, I enjoyed it more when I didn't have a huge system.
Responsibility.
Yeah, no responsibility or a huge system telling me exactly in real time how many clicks we're getting. That is like so fractious, but it's the bed you make, right? It's a bed we've all chosen to be content creators, and you sort of have to put up with the good and the bad, and there is luckily the good well outweighs the bad. That's why this awesome podcast we both have and awesome communities that we share. I think there's a lot of overlap between XboxEra and Xbox 2 podcast, and we all kind of grow together, whereas a lot of the other platform podcasts, they all seem to they don't cross-pollinate a lot, which is strange to me. But they all also only talk about Xbox, as Rand said in his rant the other day.
Did you hear that rant? The Dark rant for Friday?
It was a big rant.
No.
You didn't hear it, Nick?
Not. Sorry.
Oh man.
Rand went off on one, man. He went off on one.
Yeah.
He gets mad sometimes. He gets mad.
I went nuclear. Well, it's because look, Xbox is going through their multiplat era. I don't know what else you would even call it, right? Yeah. So things are changing. Things that have never been done in the industry, and change can always be scary when it's never been done, and nobody knows how this is going to actually pan out. Like some people suggest it could be really, really good and really amazing, and Microsoft could be and Xbox could be bigger than ever. But then some, other people are like, yeah, I don't know. Are you sure about that? Right? Like kind of like the gift from Thor, like. You sure? Because it's like it's so new, and Microsoft typically can sort of be ahead of the times, but they also be like read the market, see where it's going, and then be too early, or not be the company that should usher in something like that. Maybe it should be a different company, right? So it's like you have a lot of different opinions and feelings, and usually when feelings are involved, it gets a little bit messy about how people feel about stuff. So. And I'm sure you get it with XboxEra, but there was like a comment, the guy's just like, Xbox dead, I don't know what you guys are doing. And I was just like, if Xbox is dead, what are you doing listening to this podcast?
Yeah,
why are you here? Why are you wasting your time listening about a podcast about a dead product? Like, famously, I don't like Nintendo. I don't like their games. I don't like the Switch.
So weird.
But you won't find me hanging around Nintendo podcasts. You won't find me,
No.
going to Nintendo creators and telling them like the games they make are for 12-year-old boys and girls. Like you won't see me like on Twitter when people talk about how much they love Pokemon, being like Pokemon's the worst game in the entire existence of the earth.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
Because I let people enjoy the things they like, right? And if it doesn't matter to me, then I'm not going to waste my time on it. I got other things to worry about, right? Like, but there's this group of people. Oh, Xbox is dead. Xbox is dead. It's like I get it because we're in this situation that's so brand new that nobody knows kind of like how to read the room and like how this all will play out. But I don't know. I went on this like huge rant about it. I don't know. It was cathartic, I guess. But also I played it up. Played it up for the entertainment factor because that's what we got to do here. We got to be entertaining.
Yeah,
you got to take it to the up a notch to be a little bit more entertaining. Because if you just kind of are even keel all the time, it's like, oh well, why are we listening to this show?
I don't know, man. There was a lot of passion in that voice.
Sure, but it's tuned up. It's
you have to add a little bit of salsa to it, just a little bit. Just to spice it up. A little bit of salsa.
A little bit of salsa.
Yeah. I mean,
it's funny you talked about the cross-pollination thing, though, because I have noticed that. Like, when we started, that's what we were doing. We started reaching out to you guys, and we reached out to Colt. Hey, jump on our show, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, though, that's been probably one of my favorite parts of this.
Yeah, it's great. There's a really nice community in built here.
What I'm finding is, and maybe it's my age because I'm one of the older people doing this. I don't know how to separate my online friends from real friends, and I sort of treat them one and the same. Like, one of he's currently a patron, but I met him before that. Like, I met a dude playing Rocket League who we became really good friends. He now comes down to Melbourne. I go up to Sydney. He's in Melbourne as we speak. We're going to the tennis later tonight. We went out for dinner last night.
Damn, serious.
Yeah. I met Mike Minotti at Gamescom. I met other people that I've met through the Discord and Twitter and etc. at Gamescom, and I kind of find I talk to people and treat people the same way as I do my real life friends before all this online stuff. I don't know quite how to separate it.
I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think there is probably an element of like maybe younger generations treat it differently or whatever. But I personally do it the same way. Like, if I can easily get close to people online as I do in real life, personally speaking. But I've always been on the internet. Like, I don't know. Since I was like, I got broadband when I was like 10, maybe 9, something like that. Way too young for it, really.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, the reason I mention it is because I find not everyone in the space is like that, though. So again, I'm very loyal to my friends, whether people know that or not. I'm very, very loyal to my friends. And when so in the online space, it's slightly different. But when I find a lot of that, I shouldn't say loyalty per se, but I can't think of another word right now. But when I find that loyalty not reciprocated in the same way, I take it a little bit personal. So I find that a lot of people in this podcast space, and I think did I mention Rand on our show? I may have. Like, I found a lot of people in this space are somewhat fake, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, is that a surprise?
Is that
a shocker?
I don't know. And maybe it's just a me thing. Like, I have found that the only person in this space who actually reaches out to me without me having to go to them is Rand.
Yeah.
He's the only one.
The thing is, a lot of people are busy, so I don't reach out because I'm fucking busy.
I as well.
Yeah, but I'm even more busy.
So am I.
I'm even more busy, bro. See, Rand reaches out because Rand ain't busy. Rand's just chilling, playing games all day, you know.
No, that ain't true. That ain't true one bit. I wish it was true. No, I mean,
again, maybe it's just a me thing, because me being old and expecting certain things because of the way I grew up and all that sort of stuff. Like,
I wouldn't take that personally.
And
people are busy and caught up in their own shit. I know
that's what I'm learning. It's probably just that, because
well, no, I think what you're talking about people being fake, there is like a difference of people being busy where they don't reach out or whatever, but they like you. It's just like they have their own shit going on. They're worried about that. But then the fake that you're talking about is they only, screw with you, fuck with you because they want something from you. And as soon as they extract that from you, then they don't ever want to see you ever again, right? They're using you for something, essentially like, oh, I want to get Nick on the podcast. And maybe they're like, oh, I want to get Nick on the podcast. I ask you to come on, you come on, and then you never hear from him again. And then when you're there, because I've had this happen, usually when people ask me to do a podcast or whatever, I'll be more than glad to do it, right?
Me too.
But then I sort of sometimes can feel like the vibes. Like I'll be there, like, yeah, okay, I'll dedicate. And normally I don't have any like hard outs. So like I could be there for 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever, right? It's no big deal. But then it sort of becomes apparent. They're like, oh, hey, I'm gonna tweet this, retweet it. They don't even ask you, and like they start being like, oh, could you tell everybody that you're here? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like, what do you want me here for? Are you here because you actually want me to have a chat about stuff, or do you want me here because you think I could bring in people who see my tweet and then come find your show, and then maybe you know what I'm saying? Like it becomes like, what do you actually want me here for? Right? And sometimes it can be difficult to parse how people truly are. Where like you definitely, I'm sure you've had it. Whereas like some people just like want you for the like, oh, we're gonna get Special Nick on, and then they ask you to leak something because they see nowadays how podcast gets clipped all the time, and maybe it'll draw traffic to them and stuff. And it's like, do they really want to know about you, Nick, and be friends with you, or are they just trying to use you to get more attention for themselves?
See,
that's where the fakeness on YouTube and social media comes into play, because people will use you and then spit you back out, and it sucks.
I agree to some degree, but like I also like personally, just speaking for myself, I don't mind if people do want me for that reason, because I feel like the community's given me so much, and I didn't make Xbox. I kind of leached onto it. So like when I do other people's podcasts, like even if they are just using me for content or whatever, I'm grateful to do it still, because at the end of the day, I leached onto Xbox. I didn't create anything of my own. I didn't build a platform. I don't work for the platform. So like anything I can do to further that, I'm generally happy to do it. Unless someone's like been an asshole and they kind of want to speak to you in bad faith. Like sometimes I've had PlayStation podcasts reach out to me, and I know it's because they just want to debate me or something, and sort of like treat it like a spectacle kind of thing, right? If that happens, then yeah, I usually just eye roll or something like that. But it's I don't mind doing any Xbox podcast, generally speaking. But
I have a very, again, it's the old school nature in me. I have an etiquette about that sort of stuff. Like, if I get asked to do a podcast, now again, I'm open about the fact that my time zone is very inconvenient,
unusual.
For most American and especially British podcasts. But like, if I've been asked, I take it upon myself to remember that they've asked and go out of my way to, like I did for this show. As soon as I realized I was going to have a slot, first thing I did was reach out to Rand. I've done that with basically every single podcast I've ever been asked to be on, regardless of its size. You know that Broken Games HD guy, PlayStation guy. Yeah, Weapon Wheel. He asked me to be on back in like January, like last year. And I said, you know, he told me the time he does it. And I was like, yeah, we'll try for now. And I said, hey, I can jump on. He's like, oh, I'm doing something. And like, I kept reaching out until we found the slot. I don't know. That's just my etiquette. Like, they've thought of me, and I'm the one that's sort of umming and ahhing because of my time zone. So I'm going to go out of my way to, you know, make sure I can be on because he asked me to be on. I think the longest I ever took to get back to someone, again, not intentionally, because that was the chance I had, was like a year. Like, I hadn't forgotten about him, and I reached out and I was like, hey, dude, just letting you know I can be on this weekend because, you know, or this week because I'm not working or whatever. It's usually whenever I've got time off work. That's when I start to reach out to podcasts.
Now that you have crossed Xbox 2+1 off your list,
yeah.
What's the podcast next that you have always wanted to be on that you haven't been on yet? That you're just like, I really want to be on this one, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Well, Black Viking reached out to me a little while back, and I've now organized with him to jump on. I was going to jump on his later today, but now it's probably going to be next week. Oh yeah, SJ, thanks for reminding me. Giant Bomb. I think I'll have to reach out to Jeff Grubb because I told Jeff that I'm on 2 weeks of leave and I would be able to jump on Game Mess. So I'm going to try and maybe jump onto Game Mess.
Yeah, because Jesse has like 15 of those on you.
Yes, but again, time zone. It's like 3 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
That show. And that's what makes it so hard. But yeah. I enjoy it. I enjoy the making friends part of this, and I actually genuinely take it very, very seriously. So like Jez mentioned before, people are busy, and that's what I've got to sort of get in my head, that people are busy and not everyone is the same as me. Where like I like there's a lot, like I legitimately try to reply to every single DM I get, whether it's on Reddit, Twitter, Discord, wherever it is. I legitimately try to reply to all of them. I'm constantly reaching out where I can to friends. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? This, that, the other. I don't know. It's just a weird thing that I have. So when I don't get that sort of same level of response back sometimes, I stupidly sometimes take it personally, and it kind of adds to, I guess, somewhat of the existential crisis that I sometimes have.
Damn.
Because I already, I don't know if existential crisis is the right term for it, but I couldn't think of another one where I start to question, like I sit there and I have these moments a lot where I'm like, man, like if it wasn't for the leak stuff, no one would bother.
Oh, I get you.
You know, who would bother listening to me? Who would bother following me? Who would bother anything if it wasn't for the leak stuff? Like, without the leak stuff, I have nothing.
Like, who is Special Nick?
Who am
without
I?
the leaks?
Nah, I used to feel like that as well. I think, like, what you should do is you should just, like, do a few analysis pieces, you know, and just be like, oh, actually, I can deliver traffic even without leaks. Like, I haven't really done leaks for quite a while now. Like, nothing like a major report. Usually it's like I'll sneak exclusive info into my analyses usually. You know, people can go and read it. Come for the analysis. And you know.
Yeah, but that would involve doing work.
Yeah, it does involve doing work, but it depends how far you want to go, I suppose. I mean, for me, it's a full-time job, right? But it's not for you because you've got your OnlyFans gig or your Australian CIA gig going on or whatever it is. So, but it depends how far you want to take XboxEra, I guess.
Yeah.
So if it's pronounced Resetera, is it not pronounced Xboxera in your mind?
Yeah, no, I sort of joked about that before, but no, it's XboxEra.
Well, I'm going to start calling it Xboxera, actually. I think. But
it's funny. A while back, one of the admins or managers of Resetera wasn't happy with us using the term era, and we're like, you know, you don't own that word, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can not like it, but you don't actually own the word era, and you definitely don't own the word Xbox.
Yeah.
So, not sure what you're going to do about that, buddy.
When I was running Xbox Mad, I often wondered, like, is Microsoft someday going to come and sue me for using the phrase Xbox? Like
yeah, we said the same thing.
Like even on even Xbox 2 podcast
about the Xbox 2, we're just like,
we generally
maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah, we call it the Xbox 2 podcast when we're talking, but generally, like, all the branding says XB2, which you can't really, Xbox can't really get upset about. Like, because I realized this when we made some Teespring stuff, right, a while ago, and Teespring was like, you can't use the phrase Xbox, sorry. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, Teespring is correct. We technically can't use that.
Yeah.
But but I don't think Xbox goes after fan sites. I think they generally sort of do a sort of...
No, they don't.
No, I've never known this. I mean, there was this whole thing in Germany a while back where drwindows.de, which is like a big Windows how-to website, they were dinged by some lawyers saying you can't use the phrase Windows to advertise your website or something. And everyone was like freaking out because, like, what would that mean for Windows Central, right? But I think Microsoft relented and said it was some overzealous lawyer or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't go after fan sites, but
no, they're good. We've brought it up with them,
Yeah.
and they've been mostly pretty good about it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that might. I do
so
wonder
so far,
though.
so good. I don't know what that rebrand would look like if we had to rebrand.
Yeah, you could call it
No idea.
etc.
I always had, what was the name? Back when I wanted to start doing this ages ago, and because I have that thing where I play games late, like I'm very late to the party on games, I don't finish games. Jez and I are a lot alike like that. I rarely finish games. I had this idea to, like, call myself the LTTP gamer.
LTTPP?
Like late to the party.
Oh, you'll get
LTTP gamer. Because,
you'll get dinged by
I'm
Linus Tech Tips if you do that. LTT, Linus Tech Tips. He uses LTT.
But it's LTTP.
Right.
Late to the party.
I get you.
And I thought, because that could be my thing, that I'm always reviewing games late, and I'm always playing games after they've been popular, and I'm always... And then I was like... And then obviously XboxEra came along, but I thought if we ever did a rebrand, I don't know what we would do. As a
Well,
rebrand,
me and Jez have discussed rebranding the podcast, but it's just like, nah. It is what it is. We're Xbox.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we talk about. That's what the podcast is focused around, outside of, like, we all play our games and stuff, but... even when you think about it, like, Jez doesn't really play, complete a lot of stuff. And
I've completed more games than you this year, buddy.
I've already completed, like, a bunch.
How many?
10.
Bullshit.
10? I mean, I've been playing Metaphor, but Metaphor counts as, like, 20 completions.
Yeah, right. I've completed 3 games this year so far. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you brought that up. So someone DM'd me, Rand.
Yeah.
Someone DM'd me, like, literally how long ago?
Here comes the leaks.
What time is it here? No, it's not the leak.
Here comes
they
the
DM'd
leak.
me 20 minutes ago. I'm looking at the time. 20 minutes ago. They're like, when you do XB2+1, can you ask Rand if these games made his Games of the Year list? He did 100% them, and he is the only person who would be qualified to review them.
Okay.
And I'm looking at these games. Beautiful Sakura Fitness Club.
Oh yeah, I did those as a
Beautiful
joke.
Sakura Volleyball Club.
Yeah.
I bought one of those. Actually,
I did those as a. I didn't include those in, like, I think I counted. I beat 31 games this year, but I didn't include those in the list because I just did them as a lark. Because it's literally like Xbox and PlayStation have this problem where they're full of crap. And a lot of them are, like, super easy completions, right? Where it's like you can be done in 5 minutes. That game is literally in a minute you'll have all the achievements.
Really?
Like, it's a visual novel with Japanese girls. So you put up, like, the slider to, like, auto skip the questions, and you just, like, hold right bumper or something, and it just, like, literally speeds through the entire story, and then all the achievements unlock. And so one of my buddies told me about it, and he's like, and I was like, I'll do this as a joke, whatever. And yeah, so like I think I've been doing each one as it comes out as like a joke, just to whatever.
A joke.
I was wondering when somebody would call me on that and be like, well, why are you playing that? It's like it's just a joke. It's like you literally
Geometry Survivor is another one. Is that like a fake Geometry Wars?
That was actually fun. It was like Geometry Wars, yeah.
Yeah, someone took a screenshot of your profile, and I can see these games. They're like, ask around about these Sakura games. I'm like, okay.
The Sakura games are done as a lark, but I actually like geometry. I mean, sometimes I'll get cravings for Geometry Wars, and one of my buddies was like, Geometry Survivor's not bad. So I played that one, and it was fun for what it was. Yeah.
Oh, very good, interesting. Okay, so you're not just a perv.
Huh, no. There's just so many games on Xbox where you can complete so fast, and now that like they can go up to 5,000 gamer score, you can like, shit. If I wanted to, I could be at like 2 million gamer score probably in a month from now. And I'm at like 1.3 now. It's ridiculous, but yeah, no, the beautiful Sakura games was just a joke.
I did that on PlayStation with My Name Is Mayo. Have you ever played My Name Is Mayo?
No, but I've seen it. Yeah, I know what it is.
That sounds awesome.
I bought all three. I bought the trilogy of My Name Is Mayo games. Yeah. The funny thing is, they're actually very, I don't know how to explain this, but they're actually very solidly made and polished for what they are. And they're just a very easy platinum. You literally have to do nothing but push one button constantly. That's all you do. You just push one button over and over. And now, for how long you push that button?
Well, Mayo at the time, I think was like the easiest completions. But now there are so many of these things where PlayStation has more of a problem with it than Xbox does. But Xbox has a problem with it. But I don't know if they really care. Either one really cares. You know?
Scarcely relevant. 10 gifted subs.
I know, 10 gifted subs.
Oh,
there you go.
Thanks, Scarcely. Scarcely is like so clutch. These like with gifted people's memberships. I've got so many memberships on my channel.
Relevant. That is if
Scarecrow 121.
Scarecrow 121, isn't it? He's Aussie, and he's got his YouTube channel that he's just started up now. He's one of our OG patrons.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But he seems to like you guys a lot better than us now. Maybe that's my fault.
Everybody should like us better than you guys. I mean, come on,
Seems fair,
I mean, it seems fair.
We're talking about like. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say I thought maybe he'd want to support the Aussie more, but doesn't matter. What are you gonna do?
Well, whenever I go to America, because people haven't heard the West Midlands accent very much, I often get this like, "Oh, are you Australian?" Because people don't know. Because they're like, it's not an American accent, but I don't quite know what it is. Kind of
It is British and Australian. They get that a lot. Like in the old Xbox 360 party days, that was the go-to racial slur from Americans was "you British piece of shit," and we're like, "I'm Australian, you fucking moron! Like, what are you talking about?" Like, "Oh, you British piece of shit." I'm like, man, whatever. Such idiots.
When we were talking about leaks, I want to ask you: has there ever been a leak that you sat on intentionally, knowing that it was a big thing, but that you were kind of like hand tied behind your back, like you couldn't, or were prevented from leaking it because of like John or Jesse or anything else? Like there was something you were sitting on, and you're just like, "Oh man, I can't."
Plenty of.
I should have, but I can't.
Yeah. There's times when, or I wish I could, but I can't, or there's stuff like, and a lot of it is getting people in trouble. A lot of it is maybe something traces back to someone, and it's frustrating, and I guess it's funny. They're probably the people that are nicest to me. Is my sources? They're probably the ones that like.
Hey, we're nice too.
Like so many of them reach out and send me stuff, knowing that I'm not allowed to leak it, but they just send it to me anyway. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? This frustrates me because I like the stuff I get sent, but a lot of it I'm never allowed to ever say anything. They just send it to me for shits and giggles. Like to this day, where is it? And I keep it all because I'm getting old. I struggle to remember everything and know what I have. So like I've got this. I literally have this folder in my OneDrive full of stuff I've been sent. Like, what have I got that I won't get in trouble for saying? So you know that game, Rand and Jez, that just came out. It's a free-to-play battle royale called Off the Grid.
Never heard of it, but continue.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
It's only just come out very, very recently. It's called Off the Grid. And someone sent me a long time ago. Someone sent me like a pitch deck for that, and like that's the game
that's
that
random.
Neil Blomkamp's involved in, and all this sort of stuff. Like that started as like a crypto shooter. It's not anymore.
One of them.
They gutted all that stuff out of it, but it started as a cryptocurrency, crypto economy shooter, play to earn, crypto shooter.
Interesting.
But these are the sort of now I never leaked that. I got it like years ago, and I never leaked it. It's just something that I kind of just sat on. I can't even remember who sent it to me now. It's been that long. I got a video. How do I word this? Where I got to be careful. I got sent a gameplay video of a game by a very well-known studio, and again was told you can't ever mention this game. And I'm like, man, that really looks like a game that Microsoft is making, and kind of one that Capcom makes. And I don't even know if this project is cancelled yet. And I'll just get random stuff like that. I'll get pitch decks. I'll get internal documents for big games. And I just have to sit on this stuff. And it sometimes it can get frustrating when you see people say certain things about how you get your info and where it comes from, knowing you sit on this kind of stuff. But yeah, and I've sort of done cross story, like with Tom Henderson. Like I understand, like I know that for Jez and people that earn a living out of this stuff, it's obviously work. For me, it's not. For me, it's just a thing I do for fun on the side. But at the same time, I understand that I don't know. I think there's honor among thieves, if that makes sense. So when I was given a bunch of stuff for, which game was it? Battlefield 2042, I want to say. One of the Battlefields. I remembered that Tom Henderson was like the Battlefield guy. So I reached out to him and I was like, oh, someone sent me a bunch of stuff for Battlefield, and I know that you leak Battlefield stuff. Is this stuff you've already leaked, or are you aware of this stuff? Sent it all to him. He's like, oh, hold on, this is new, blah, blah, blah. Let's do a joint thing. So we set up this thing where he had an article ready to go. I had the rumor mill, and both went live at the same time. And then we did something similar for another game. But yeah,
I've done stuff like that with Tom before.
Yeah, and that's why I've reached out to you to run stuff by you in the past, and Rand and Grub, and again, that's just that whole thing where I like take the friendships and that sort of stuff seriously. Like I will run stuff by you guys. I mean, Jez will constantly give me shit and say, "Think you guys making it up?"
Well, yeah, I guess we want to talk about Gears, right? Because
oh my god,
Gears collection has been a thing now for 3 years. I think you first talked about it.
It's 3 years now. It's 3 years in January. It's 3 years now.
Yeah. So it's 3 years, and I did a podcast with Nate the Hate on. I think it was released on Friday, but we recorded it on Wednesday. And I mean, he put it out there pretty strongly that he feels the Gears collection is releasing this year, although it's not really a collection. He said it was going to be Gears 1 and 2.
That is weird, isn't it?
And then he also strongly feels that Gears Z-Day is releasing this year, which I think Tom Warren was the first to report. back when the game was revealed that Gears E-Day was targeting fall 2025.
Oh, did he?
Which, yeah, like Tom put it out there like right after the game was revealed and was like, according to,
I didn't actually know that.
as part of his like notepad stuff, right? He does the whole notepad thing. But he put it out there that as far as he was told, that Gears E-Day was targeting 2025 and actually was targeting a release before Fable. Fable's also targeting 2025. So Nate put it out there that he's like, Gears E-Day is coming in 2025, and the Gears collection. But the Gears collection isn't really the Gears collection. It's just Gears 1 and 2, and it's supposed to be releasing sometime this holiday or sometime this summer, with like Gears E-Day coming out in the fall. And then we were kind of speculating, well, how are they going to work multiplayer? Because you're not going to have multiplayer from the OG going against multiplayer of a new E-Day, because it would split the user base. Would they have like a Call of Duty thing? Maybe the Gears 1 and 2 don't have multiplayer. And it's kind of funny because, when you originally first said that, I think you told me like, I leaked it too early. I leaked it way too early. Like it was basically just early. They basically just greenlit the project.
Yeah, that's right.
And we weren't going to see it for many years. And I've always told you should probably stay away from leaking shit that was like 3 to 4 years away.
No, what happened was I messed up because all I said initially in January 3 years ago was that another Xbox IP should be getting the Master Chief Collection treatment. That's all I had originally said, and I left it to everyone else to guess. Now, I'm not going to lie, 90% of the guesses were Gears of War, and the other, 10% were Fable.
Yeah.
And I was never going to say anything, because my guy, that is the only time I've gotten in genuine trouble with the source. The one and only time in 5 years I've gotten in trouble. And I let it slip about 4 months later, I think, doing another podcast. So technically it hasn't been 3 years yet since Gears was mentioned. Because then I was doing some other podcast and we were just talking about Xbox's upcoming slate. And we were making a joke. You know how the joke about Xbox was always Gears, Forza, Halo, Gears, Forza, Halo, Gears, Forza, Halo. So then I think this was 2021 or something like that Halo was going to come out, Forza was going to come out. And then I let it slip, and I was like, oh my God, how funny would it be if this was another year that it ended up being Gears, Forza, Halo? And I was like, oh, I had just realized what I had done, and everyone was like, oh my God, it's Gears collection. That collection he was talking about was Gears. And I was like, oh, shit. I had this brain fade, and I wasn't concentrating, and I let it slip, and I was like, oh, shit. And yeah. It was so early. It was too early. To the point where Jez 100% thought it's not a real thing.
Well, I mean, because at the time it wasn't a real thing.
It wasn't really in so much as it wasn't a physical code base that had started work. Yeah. But it was something that I knew.
Look how much.
Essentially.
Look how much it. But now, if Nate's to be believed, let's hypothetically let's just believe what he says, right? 100% is happening. Then it really changed, because I think it was supposed to be Gears 1, 2, and 3, and now it sounds like it's just Gears 1 and 2
which is so weird.
With 2 being a full-on UE5 remake and potentially no multiplayer whatsoever, which I think it was supposed to have. And so it's geez, that's kind of it's kind of odd.
So odd.
It is very odd. And then I was on Xbox last night, because I already told Jez and Nick this pre-show. I was playing Metaphor ReFantasia, which I'm 55 hours in. I'm getting closer and closer, Jez. And I got Phil on the friends list, right? So I took a gander at what Phil's been playing. See what Phil's up to. Lo and behold, he was playing co-op. He was on at the time playing co-op in Gears of War 2. Oh, sneaky Phil. It's I'm thinking to myself, why would Phil be playing Gears of War 2 right now? Like, why would Phil be playing through co-op campaign in Gears 2 in the year of our Lord 2025? Right?
Is that a potentially surprise 5th game for the Dev Direct?
I'm gonna say
I don't
no.
think so. No.
You don't think?
No,
Well,
I don't think so.
Rand knows the show, so
I mean,
Oh, does he?
I don't know the show. Rand knows.
Well, the thing about like saying like you know something, it's just like I'm always very cautious because things can change, and it's like nothing's ever 100% to me. So even though like we all might know the show, I'm not gonna be like, well, it's 100% locked in, because there have been times where something changed or whatever. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we know, and if it is, I think
everyone seems to know the 4th game. Apparently, everyone seems to know.
Well,
the 4th
I mean,
game.
nobody wants to really put it out there, but I mean,
I'm not doing it. Nope.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I mean, Nate put it, said it on his show about Final Fantasy 16, but even more about Final Fantasy 16 is a game that. Nick, you were like, I think Sony locked up, because he made it sound like, Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Rebirth are both being announced for Xbox this year.
That's the impression I always got with Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Like, I've never publicly said it will never come. The words I've always used with Final Fantasy 7 Remake is don't hold your breath. That's all I've ever said, because the impression I was always given for 7 Remake was that Sony does not want to let it go. That's the impression I always got.
Well, this is the thing, right, about 7 Remake. The reason 7 Remake's coming to Xbox is the same reason Xbox games are going to PlayStation. The industry's changed. So while it might have been true in the past that PlayStation, Death Stranding and Final Fantasy 7 were going to be completely locked down, that was definitely true in the past. It's just not true now, because the industry is a different universe now, and the revenue growth demands are way outstripping the amount of people that are coming into the industry. As in new customers. So that's ultimately where we're at now. That's why it's happening now, and why you probably had like really great sourcing that it wasn't going to come ever. I'm pretty sure I've said that before, that I didn't think it would ever come. But we didn't think we'd be in a situation where stuff like Halo is potentially going to PlayStation, if my sourcing is accurate.
Well, also, I think when Square made those deals, I think they probably thought that the games would sell a lot better than they currently have. And I would even imagine, I bet you Sony thought that it would sell consoles more than it has, because when you look at Rebirth really didn't do much. So Sony may be looking at it like, this isn't really worth to pursue anymore, of locking down
Sony's
the franchise.
Barely paying anything for them, though.
I mean,
Sony's paying a lot to lock this stuff down.
I mean, I'm sure they paid a pretty penny for it.
They are paying quite a lot, to be honest.
You reckon?
I know they are.
I don't know, man.
Sony
I saw that contract for Resident Evil 8 marketing or whatever it was, and they weren't paying much for that.
This isn't marketing.
That's marketing. This is like, you can't release your game anywhere else. So like, you have to, you got to pay a pretty penny for it. But also like, maybe Square Enix views it like, you look at how well like Yakuza and Atlas games are starting to sell now that they've embraced multi-platform, right? Like, you're starting to see Final Fantasy decline when it was the granddaddy of the whole space, and like all these other games starting to like trend
Atlas
upwards.
is taking over.
Yeah, and now it's
Atlas
like,
and Sega.
It's about busting the zeitgeist, really. And you can't bust the zeitgeist if you're on one platform. It's that simple, I don't know how true that is. I mean,
plenty of PlayStation exclusives have done it.
But I think there's a big look. We'll joke about it, but it is. You still look at it like Horizon Forbidden West came out, and a week later, nobody cared and nobody talked about it anymore because Elden Ring came out and was literally everywhere.
No one cares about Horizon. Full stop.
Well, no, people care about Horizon.
Trying to force that.
People care about Horizon.
I don't believe it.
I think if Horizon was in more places, like if Horizon also launched day one on PC,
The
I think more people.
the only Sony game that's bust the zeitgeist is Helldivers. That's the only one, and the only reason they did is because of PC. There isn't a single
and
full...
Spider-Man. Spider-Man does, but that's because
No, I don't think it does, man. I don't think it does bust the zeitgeist like in the same way that Fortnite does and stuff like that. And even if it does, the only reason it does is because it's Spider-Man. If it wasn't Spider-Man, if it was just Horizon, no one would give a shit. Because in essence, you know, you've got other, you've got similar open world games that is like, in essence, what you do in Spider-Man, you know, and they don't break the zeitgeist. Well, they don't break the algorithm.
Sunset Overdrive didn't break the zeitgeist. And that's
partially because the Xbox
Spider-Man branding.
That's because the Xbox One was a failure at that point in time. Like, you know. Like nobody wanted to touch it. It was still a joke of the industry. All the media still hated it, and they were releasing it like the first holiday after or 2014, right?
Idiots.
And nobody wanted to touch anything Xbox related at all. Even though like when you look at Xbox, you look at Xbox One. Man, Xbox One had the games for the first half of the generation. It had the games, and you know who didn't? PlayStation didn't have anything the first half of the generation. Like all their games
don't mean shit.
All their games came at the end of the generation, and that's when Xbox wasn't really putting out games, and the games they were putting out at the end of the Xbox One were extremely low rated. We got that run of like a whole bunch of yellow 70, 60 Metacritic stuff, right? Which remember Phil had to apologize. Yeah, it's changed, but Phil had to apologize at the Game Awards on stage with Jeff Keighley, where he literally said, "Oh, you know, we can do better. We will do better." And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're putting out Crackdown. I know you like Crackdown, but
I love
critically, Crackdown was panned, and so was State of Decay 2, and so was Sea of Thieves at that time. But you know, people have this revisionist history about the last generation that like PlayStation was always putting out amazing games from launch. No. And then Xbox had no games whatsoever, and I'm like, no. Like Xbox was, they were putting out games, and then all of a sudden, 2017 hit, and it was like there was clearly like a pipeline issue, or the budget was cut because there was nothing, and you know, it was like we even thought like, is Xbox even going to be around? It's sort of seemed like they were kind of done with the Xbox experiment, you know. But we do have a question here for Mr. Deadly Headley in chat. He says, question for the panel. Trust in Xbox is still shaky among the hardcore. Xbox reassures with talk of new hardware, but some fans are still indignant. In your view, can Xbox restore trust?
Or how can they restore trust?
How can Xbox restore trust?
I replied to him.
Yeah, I see that. I think for some people, that trust is completely broken, and no matter what they do, it could never be repaired. I think we even talked about this about the Xbox community when originally like all this stuff happened. It's like there's no way to get it back. With some people, there's just no way to reconnect that trust. And some people are just some people are like even ones that like really believe Phil and what Phil always said. Even now, those people are like, who cares what Phil says? Because we've seen instances of what Phil said years ago that are completely negated by what they're currently doing. I mean, hell, people will even bring up the podcast from last year where Phil said, it's just 4 games. It doesn't mean everything. I don't want to tell other people on the other platform. And it's just like, no, it actually, now it actually did. You know, and so it's like people are like, don't trust Phil anymore. They don't trust the brand. They're not sure that the hardware is going to be, you know, long for the world and stuff. So I think when a certain segment of the audience, I think trust is completely broken. And we'll never come back.
And that's the thing, though, that like the whole I don't believe Phil thing, that comes back to the thing that guys like myself and Jez try to tell people: things do change. People don't believe, they don't want to believe it because they think all this leak shit is so binary. But things change. They can change overnight. Like, you know, the one that Jez and I joked about and had the little competition about was Indie. Indiana Jones started as a multiplat initially. Then Microsoft negotiated the deal to lock it down. And it was locked down. And we saw that in the FTC trial.
Yep.
And then obviously Project Latitude came along and it became a multi again. So that's changed twice. Like things do change. Just like Blade. Blade started as an exclusive. Originally, Microsoft wanted to lock it down. Now, they won't be locking that down. It'll be on everything now. Things change, man. I don't understand why people can't come to grips with that. So it's not Phil's not intentionally. So when Phil says something 2 years ago, at the time he meant it. At the time he was telling the truth.
But a lot of people view it as a consumer, and they like some people view it as like, you sold me an Xbox Series X on the promises of the exclusives that were coming up in the generation, and the Bethesda acquisition, which you said was done for exclusives, and now we are before any of those games really come out or anything, and now like they're all multi-plat. So you broke your promise to me, and I'm a consumer. It doesn't matter that business realities change. It's not for the consumer to understand how the industry is changing or business realities. It's just, I'm gonna go where I feel most valued, and my money, I can get the most for it. So for some people, they're just gonna be like, yeah, I'm done with Xbox. They lied to me. They didn't live up to their promises. And if they're gonna put their games everywhere else, then why not spend my money on those platforms and still get exactly what I got here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can explain like, hey, business realities change, but consumers don't care. They're just gonna whatever. You lied to me. I'm gonna go somewhere else. Right?
I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm generally with them. I think the hardware will go away too. I'm one of those
probably
people as
eventually.
Well. Not so much because of the exclusivity, because I think exclusives are overrated in terms of their draw to a platform. But this is Microsoft we're talking about. This is the company that will pivot on a dime. They will, was it Jez that reported originally? I can't remember who it was, that, there were Surface Minis on a truck going to retail, and they were like, no, we're not doing the Surface Mini anymore.
I don't know how many times Jez has used that story.
Yeah, that was Zach.
But it's true though.
That was Zach on Windows Central. He actually like because there were people out there, right? And this is how hardcore Zach Bowden is on Windows Central, right? There were people out there like, oh, the Surface Mini never existed, you lied. So fucking Zach. And this is an example of when you can really piss Microsoft off. Zach got his hands on a prototype Surface Mini and did an unofficial review of it on Windows Central from like a factory or whatever. And Microsoft was like, hey, that's stolen property. Can you give it back, please? So Zach he bought this prototype. He had to send it fucking back. But he was like, he was so determined to like, do the journalism bit that that's what happened.
People just don't want to accept reality. Like, it's funny. I had a source reach out to me about Keystone.
Oh yeah,
and
Keystone.
they were telling me that, and I'm so glad I held off. I'm like, something in my gut was like, don't do this. Something, I don't know what it was, but something in my gut was like, don't leak it. They were like, oh, the streaming stick. They've done a deal with the carrier.
Right? In the end,
I can't remember. They've done a deal with a carrier. They're going to sell the stick with a controller and a deal with a carrier for like this many dollars. Blah 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 blah. You can leak it. And I was like, oh, look, I'll hold on to it for a little bit. Just leave it. Right? I said, I don't want to leak it yet. I'll sort of wait. I'm a bit funny with these Xbox and Microsoft leaks now because I think it's pissing people off.
Sure does.
And then the next day, the very next day, it was revealed that Keystone was like shelved or cancelled or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God I didn't rumor mill that. I was like, holy crap.
I think
the shit I would have got.
Yeah. I think what happened was Brad Sams talked about it initially, Project Hobart, right? And then I had a source that gave me everything after Brad Sams did it. And then I did the report of the full blown report on it, and then Microsoft gave us some. Sometimes, like, what they like you to do is like reach out to them if you've got a leak, and it's like if they feel like it's an okay to talk about, they'll actually like they'll give you a comment, and they gave us all comments about Keystone. And they wanted us to have the right context that it's it's essentially dead. They couldn't get it cheap enough. Is essentially what happened with Keystone.
Yeah.
So You know, because they feel like people only accept it at a certain price, right? Which I would say is probably about $99 or $150 maybe. $150 in today's economy, probably. But yeah, it is what it is. You know, man, this game Blasphemous is brutally difficult.
Very hard.
You could do the stick, or maybe you could just partner with Amazon and give the
do the Fire Stick thing
functionality to Amazon Fire Stick, which is probably already in a bunch of people's homes and would sell more than a Keystone ever would. Sometimes it's weird because like Xbox will. I remember hearing during the Xbox One gen that Microsoft was prototyping cloud gaming handhelds. There was like no interest in them doing like regular handhelds at all. It was basically like, if there's going to be a handheld that Xbox makes, it's going to be cloud gaming.
Yeah.
And it's funny to go back a generation later, so many years after that. And now it's like, no, if they're the handheld and it's going to be native. How like a few 5-6 years change from, if they make a handheld, it's going to be cloud. Because there's really
Switch, mate.
Well, it's the Switch, but it's also because of everything that's going on in the PC space with the gaming handhelds, with Steam Deck and
this is that too extreme.
Lenovo and all that stuff, where it was like, no, it was going to be cloud because cloud was the future. Remember how much Microsoft was pushing it? Because I don't know if you ever heard this from your sources, Nick, but me and Jez know for a fact, Microsoft and Sony were terrified of Google coming in Stadia.
Yes,
they were absolutely terrified of it.
Petrified.
And it's funny to look back on that they were that scared because like everybody who could see the Stadia stuff coming, like we all could, like, the thing's gonna be dead in a couple years. Like book
all of us said it.
It's dead. But though, and granted, they run the business. They have to be wary of competition like that. But both PlayStation and Microsoft were just like shaking in their boots when it came to Stadia.
I didn't hear PlayStation. I only heard Microsoft. I didn't hear PlayStation.
I heard PlayStation was also very, very scared about it.
Because PlayStation does understand the industry better than Microsoft does.
Remember,
so
I think even part of there was even part of the Insomniac leaks was their estimations of how many Stadias would be out there, and it was like more than PlayStation's. Like that's
very surprising to hear, because the moment we all saw, like you were in my Discord at the time, when we all saw Stadia, we were like, that's going to be dead in less than 2 years.
But Microsoft and Sony were pretty scared of it.
The reason
that is shocking to me.
The reason they were scared of it is because on paper it made a lot of sense. They own the world's biggest video streaming platform, and it's like, if you can successfully integrate that social graph into a gaming platform, you've potentially got on paper a winning combination. It's just Google could not execute. They absolutely could not execute. They built a system on, at the time, Linux, without a solid. They built it without an emulation layer. So the games had to be Linux native. Whereas Steam was like, okay, well, if we're going to use Linux, because they work with devs, well, there's absolutely no way we can get people to port to Linux. So we're going to have to make a world-class emulation layer, which is what Proton is. So Google never had a Proton. Destiny had to be manually ported to Linux and shit like that. And that was what killed the system, essentially.
Dude, and
sounds like Windows Phone.
Google was paying. You remember those reports of how much Google was paying to get the Assassin's Creed games? Like, they were offering millions and millions of dollars to get, because like nobody wanted to put their games there because there wasn't an audience.
And there was no doing the porting was too much of a ball ache.
A headache.
And like they hadn't started up their internal studios. I mean, they were doing internal stuff, but none of their games had come out yet. And then it was like crash and burn. But it's just funny to sometimes look where it was like, oh, if we're going to do a handheld, it's going to be cloud gaming, and cloud gaming is going to be this big thing, and we're worried about Google. And now it's like, I'm not saying that cloud gaming doesn't have a future, and it's probably more 5 to 10 years off.
It does.
Definitely.
But it's now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you better make a native handheld, right? And it does seem like everybody's doing that, or it's at least going to be the play. Are you interested in this rumored Xbox handheld that has always been bandied about? Yeah.
I've been there from day one. I've been like, when everyone was telling me it'll never be like an Xbox Series S, I'm like, yes, it will be. I'm like 100% they can do an Xbox Series S as a handheld. Of course they
But
can.
will they though? Will they?
I don't know if they will now. A long time ago I had heard there was one. And we had a really cool guest on our show, Carrie Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
Who's just like all about this stuff. He knows all the nitty gritties and in and outs of the handheld hardware and stuff. And he did a great video on his channel. What's his YouTube channel? At the Fox PHA.
Oh yeah. Fork. Is it the guy who does all the handheld stuff? Yeah.
Yes.
Forks.
He pronounces it
PHA.
Fox. He actually. Yep. Yeah, he pronounces it Fox because he was saying that Fox FOX was taken, so he just changed the spelling for his channel.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
His main pinned video is on how an Xbox Series S portable is possible, and he breaks down why and how. And I'm like, man, I reached out to Jason Ronald. I'm like, check this guy out, man. I want to have the two of you on our show together, so you can like. Talk about this stuff, because I reckon it'd be like cool as to hear two very smart people talk about this shit. But yeah, I've been like camp Series S portable from day one.
Camp handheld.
Day one. Yep.
Yeah, I would
love
right there with you, man. I'm right there with you, and it does
to be honest,
seem like it's going to happen in some way.
So do you?
And here's the frustrating thing. Sorry. Here's the frustrating thing. All this shit we see with, the Series S is holding everything back. The Series S is this. The Series S is that. These issues would not be there if it had been a handheld from the start. I know it couldn't have been. I'm aware of that. I'm just saying that had the Series S been a handheld from the start, no one would give a shit about the holding back the generation stuff. No one would be saying it.
Well, that was also
more
a talking
willing
point because PlayStation didn't have a little bro system, right? So
no,
it became a console war thing, really.
Yeah, a little bit.
But hey, they're supposed to have a PlayStation handheld.
Yeah, we discussed that on our show with Carrie.
Yeah,
he finds it odd, as do I, because there's so many aspects of a PlayStation handheld that don't make sense the way it was described. Like, why would you release a PlayStation 5 handheld basically when the PS6 comes out? It doesn't make any sense. Like, if Sony is doing a handheld now,
because it could play all the biggest games. Like, all the biggest games are still going to probably be the PS4 and PS5 games, right?
So then how would they brand it?
I don't know. I mean,
so you don't want to brand it as a PlayStation 5 portable.
Well, then wouldn't the same thing apply to Xbox if Xbox was releasing a handheld?
No, because of the way Xbox development platform works. It's not the same thing.
I guess
They're
it also depends.
Very different environments.
I guess it also depends on how this Xbox handheld is. Is it going to be console based or is it going to be PC based?
That's the big question.
The one that I had been told about at one point was console. Now, whether that one still exists or whether it's still a thing, I don't know. But the one I had heard of was console.
Because like right now, if you were to release an Xbox handheld today, like if Microsoft were to release one at the end of the year, it would have to be console based. Because
I'd want it to be console based.
All like the licenses and everything are based around that. But as me and Jez have talked about, like in the future, Microsoft's goal might be to have there is no difference between a PC Xbox game and an Xbox console game. They're one and the same, right? And they cut through the fine line. So developers are just like, hey, just port this game to Windows Store, and the Xbox console that we sell can play it too. So you don't actually have to make all like these different console versions. And that maybe Microsoft can go back and rejig all these licenses, and all your games would now be PC games, right? And then if you make a handheld, well, then the handheld would have to be like PC based because of that scenario. So I just sort of wonder which one they're gonna walk down, which path they're gonna walk down.
It's complicated. It is really complicated because there's pros and cons to both models, isn't there? It's like if you go if you go console model, then you've got like you've got tech issues there because obviously the whole sort of the console model would require like massive investment in order to get that port ready. So if you went with something like the Z2 Extreme, you know, instead, where it was like more PC based, then you've kind of got a licensing issue because you don't have the licenses to sell PC versions of Xbox games. Then you could try another way, where this is where I think Microsoft might go. But again, this potentially creates another licensing issue, but they might feel bolstered by Steam and its Proton emulation layer, which is where you do an emulation layer. And if there is an emulation layer, which Microsoft can say, well, technically it's still an Xbox, you know, like how, you know, Steam's kind of like, technically it's still, you know, the Steam version or whatever, even if it's running on Linux. And Microsoft can point to Proton and be like, hey, look, you're cool with these guys running an emulation layer on your game. There's no reason why you shouldn't be cool with us running an emulation layer on the Xbox version. But then again, you've got a technological issue again, because I don't know if you're dedicating compute overhead to emulation layer, that's going to hit battery life, it's going to hit performance and all that kind of stuff. Can Microsoft really deliver an emulation layer that's as good as Proton for that purpose within Windows? Because Windows itself has a lot more overheads than SteamOS. So I suppose your boy, Mr. Fox there, would know way more than me on that topic. But it does seem like there's pros and cons to both arenas. And I suppose the cherry on top is like, do they actually not just go for something like, I don't know, just say fuck it and make a license someone else's technology, you know? There's that too, right? I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
When do you think this, you know, Phil said it's a few years away. I mean, when someone tells you a few...
Big mistake.
Someone tells you a few... Because to me, when someone says, it'll be in a few hours, few to me is 4.
Few to me is 3. I've
Like
always
a couple's 2, a couple's 2. Few to me is like 4. 3. So, okay, 3 to 4, I guess, is within that range. So we're looking at... But I mean, even if you say 3 years from now, I mean, you're looking at 2028.
Too late.
Right? But I mean, PlayStation is also like, you know, Tom Henderson reported, they're like really early on the PlayStation handheld, and you know, like who knows, you know, if next generation starts for PlayStation in 2028, maybe that's when they would launch it. You know,
would you want Sony launches it? Sony, in the end, people have to understand Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are all in different positions in the market, and there's different rules for all three of them. I mean, we know that more than most. There's different rules for Microsoft. There are things Microsoft can't do that the others can. There are things Microsoft can't get away with that the others can. That's just, unfortunately,
the Xbox tax?
The reality of the market.
And the Nintendo rebate?
Oh, the Nintendo rebate, Jesus. Yeah, the Nintendo obviously can pretty much get away with anything within reason. Nintendo's thing is, what have I always said? What's my saying? So I've always said about how Nintendo fans are like, a lot of them are like begrudgingly supportive, as in most Nintendo fans that I've known acknowledge the stupid shit Nintendo does. They acknowledge what assholes they can be, but they're like, I just love them so much. What am I going to do? Oh, well. And they just shrug and they just go with it. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Xbox fans are obviously the biggest complainers. We're the ones that scream at them. We're the ones that tell them to get effed and all that sort of stuff. We don't take no shit. And then the PlayStation fans are at the other end of the extreme, where it doesn't matter what Sony does. It's the greatest. Don't ever question it. They are gods. The Nintendo fans are somewhere in the middle.
Damn.
But again, that's been earned over how long now? 40 years.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah, it's been earned over 40 years. I feel a little bit for Microsoft in that they only came into the industry like 5 years later than Sony did. People act like Microsoft just came into the industry last generation. Microsoft was there. So Sony came in what, 94, 95?
Yeah.
And Microsoft released in 01, but they announced their intentions in 2000. So we're only really talking a 5-year gap, which in the olden days was one generation of consoles. So they're only really one generation behind Sony, yet people treat them and act like they're the new kid on the block still that just came into the industry, which I've always found a bit weird. It's a weird phenomenon to me.
It's Microsoft's in a tough position because like people expect more of them because it's Microsoft, right? But at the same time, it's like they've still got to run as a profitable entity within Xbox, within Microsoft, because shareholders being shareholders, you know, they have demands and more so than ever when shareholders have basically been led into this $80 billion, $73 billion investment or wherever it is. They've been led into this, you know, at the same time as the AI boom. So like they're like, oh shit, Microsoft just wasted all this money that could have been spent on AI. And we're tied to OpenAI when we could be stealing their engineers using this money that you've given away to Activision Blizzard, which is currently having its lunch eaten by Marvel's rivals and Path of Exile on 2 of their biggest properties. So like Phil's got a lot to prove, you know, and it just kind of is what it is. And as fans, we're sort of stuck in the middle where it's like we have to sort of swallow a lot of these changes in and around what's going on with all the BS, you know. Just kind of is what it is. And for whatever it's worth, I suppose we kind of have to roll with the punches, especially as like content creators and Xbox fans and all that kind of thing. Because, you know, if at the end of the day we aren't fans anymore because of their decisions, Microsoft's gonna have to go back to the investors and say, well, the things you wanted us to do alienated everyone to the point where we no longer have a platform, period. You know? So,
and that's the part I've always been. This is why I keep saying I'm on the camp of all this stuff is a mistake, and it's short-term gain for long-term pain. That's how I view all this Project Latitude bullshit. I think it's just they're looking too short-term. Because my fear is that once Microsoft, and they will, let's be real, Satya will get to that point where he'll be like, why are we spending billions and billions of dollars on R&D and manufacturing these consoles and yada, 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 just to sell however many and not make a ton of money on them? Why are we still doing this when we can just put these games on PlayStation and on Switch and on PC and we don't have to worry about the investment in hardware? Why are we worrying about this? Why are we doing this?
Part of it, I think, at least from Phil's perspective and the Xbox team, is like, that can be like, look, you know, we've got this really cool cloud shit we can do and really cool, you know, AI stuff we can do. Like, for example, we put out an article today about DirectX neural rendering, which is going to be a new DirectX feature, which essentially lets you imagine, not you, sorry, lets the AI can imagine the game onto your computer, like, for lack of a better explanation. So if instead of using the VRAM and the compute from the GPU, what you can do is use the NPU to more efficiently just render the game via the AI's imagination, basically, that it's been trained on. Oh, this is what Skyrim looks like, and this is what happens when the person moves in this direction. Should, in theory, be more efficient than actually just rendering the game natively, at least in like a few years' time. And if they can nail that, then you truly do get a scenario where it's like Xbox everywhere all the time on any device that's got a NPU in it. In theory, you know, but it could come to nothing again. And also, you know, but it's things like that which interest and excite Satya. You know, the long-term play. What's the long-term play? And I think like, and Phil can go to him and say, like, look, if we give up on hardware now, we don't have a long-term play. You know, like someone high up at Xbox recently, I had an email back and forth with someone high up at Xbox recently. And they were saying to me, like, the way we're structured is that we do have a platform for the next 20 years. The way we're structured is that we do keep making hardware for 20 years. That's all factored and costed, you know. So there might come a time where they're forced to, you know, give up or whatever because of what XYZ reasons. But at least for the time being, it is still within scope that, you know, we have Xbox as a platform, you know.
Yeah, I know, but my concerns with Microsoft have always been that I just don't think they understand that the video game market's a little bit more unique than others.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not. Again, they rely too much on contextless data to guide them and guide their decisions, and that's my worry about them.
I think that's just an issue with corporations, because you have to have some kind of evidence to present to shareholders about XYZ, because shareholders sure as hell don't understand any of that crap, right? So
no, they don't.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue with any corporation that sort of maybe lacks the political capital to just push back on shareholders. And I think for the longest time, when Xbox was like basically a well-funded startup within Microsoft, they weren't being scrutinized as heavily as they are now, or will be in the future. No. You know, it's a weird place to live in. But at the same time, you know, I complain about shareholders and whatever. I don't think Xbox exists without Microsoft support at this point. You know, without their investment, without, like, if Microsoft was a startup by itself, I don't think you get a company that can exist in third place for as long as it has without some kind of support from higher up the chain, right? Whether it's the tech stack and all that kind of shit.
In third place, though, and this is the thing, isn't it? Like, we weren't always in a world where they were third place. So there was a time that they had the right people running the show and making the right decisions that are cognizant of the uniqueness of the video game industry, which is how we got the 360.
At that same time, though, they are also the benefactors of PlayStation almost shitting themselves out of the business.
And Nintendo as well, with the Wii U.
Again, more proof that exclusives aren't what actually sell consoles. They are for Nintendo.
They
are a fact. Oh, yes, and we've always said that on our show. Nintendo is like that sort of unique. But then even Nintendo, look at the Wii U. If exclusives sold consoles, the Wii U wouldn't have been the bomb that it was.
This is the thing I said in one of my rants, and I just want to give a shout out to Scarcely Relevant. Dropped another 5 gifted subs.
Oh, thank you so much, dude.
25 gifted subs today for Jez, all in celebration of Nick being here as well. Mm-hmm. But one of my rants I went on, because I've had a few Xbox fans in my things be like, you know, don't you trust Xbox and Microsoft? Like, you know, when you criticize them or you don't like understand the vision, right? Like you said, like you think this is, you know, short-term game for long-term pain. And I sort of agree with you. You know, I just don't know how this is going to play out. Like, maybe it plays out great. Maybe it plays out horribly, right? I don't think it's a good idea. And I've been pretty vocal about that. Like, when people ask, like, I don't think it's a good idea. And then people will say to me, well, they're $1 trillion company, Rand. They got smart people working. They'll be able to do it right. They know what they're doing. And I'm like, bro, the whole video game industry landscape is littered with companies making wrong decisions. I mean, like, companies in general make wrong decisions everywhere, and they have the smartest people, and they're rich. That's like such a misnomer that just because you have money or because that you make the right choice.
You must be smart. That's bullshit.
Yeah. So, but I've seen people say that, like, "Oh, trust the company. They know what they're doing." It's like,
no.
10 years ago, you know, they made the whole DRM all that stuff, and it's like, well, how did that turn out? And then PlayStation, like you just mentioned, like Xbox 360 and how well it did, but it was also a benefactor of nobody wanted the PS3.
Correct.
for the because of Kutaragi making the cell architecture so hard to make, and then putting the Blu-rays in there to win that format war, so they had to sell the PS3. Do you remember when Gabe came out and said, or not? It wasn't Gabe. It was. I think it was the CEO of Take-Two at the time said, "We're reconsidering our support of PlayStation." Like, because the PlayStation was because the PS3 at that time was selling so badly that some of these companies were like, I don't know if it's worth supporting PlayStation.
Gabe said that.
Gabe had mentioned how bad the PS3 was, but there was a couple other. You'd have to go back and look. This is like 2006, 2007. This is a long time ago.
Hey guys, I need to be right back real quick. Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay. And
go.
They because it was really bad, and then Nintendo comes out with the Wii U after there's huge success with the Wii, and nobody buys it, and they had great exclusives, right? And nobody bought the system, and they bound back with the Switch, and look how amazing that did, and
this is what I mean, man. I've always said it. The whole exclusives argument's always been a myth. Always been a myth, because history is littered with consoles with great exclusives that never sold. And the consoles completely flopped. There are so many factors that go into a console's success that the way people pin it all on exclusives is insane. And I was going to mention this before, but we got off track with the PS4. Like, the narrative suddenly shifted. As soon as the PS4 started getting games, it's exclusives that matter. See, the PlayStation's got games. Xbox doesn't have any games. But that narrative only appeared after like 2016, 2017.
Yeah,
Before
I mean that
PlayStation
started happening when Horizon came out in 2017, and then especially when 2018 happened, when it was God of War, Spider-Man, and Detroit Become Human. Like, they really
before that, they had nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you had 1 year with Bloodborne, you had 1 year with Uncharted 4, but
and Street Fighter 5, and that was it.
Yeah, and Xbox made their own mistakes and everything. Like, but yeah, it's just exclusives are always that thing that people always try to, like, this is why you buy the console. But when you look at like how much something sells versus how many like consoles the platform has, it's like, is it really though, or is it like the big third-party games is it the Grand Theft Autos, the Maddens and the FIFAs and all that stuff? Like, really, what sold the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation 5, and to a large degree also PS4 and Xbox One, is Fortnite, Call of Duty, Warzone, Apex Legends, Rocket League. That's you look at the most played games on these systems, it's the same games as it was 7 years ago almost.
Yeah.
That's what people are playing, and that's what people bought these systems for. I mean, the fact that you can buy an Xbox Series S or a PlayStation 5 and have a laundry list of great games to play and not have to buy a single game to enjoy that. Like, someone could get a PS5 and not buy a single game, but still spend thousands of hours on it because they're playing Fortnite and all these other games, and maybe they're spending money in the microtransactions.
I've got
that's what I'm saying. You could.
Sorry, go. Well, I was
just going to say you could buy. Sorry, we did it to each other again. You could buy a PS5 and it comes with Astrobot for free. They all have it built in, the free Astrobot. Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, Warzone, Rocket League, like the sheer volume of meaty free-to-play games. If you've ever, I don't know if you've ever gone through the actual list of them on like the Xbox Store, because you know how the Xbox Store has a free-to-play section, so does the PlayStation Store. If you go through it, you know how many games there are in there? In that free-to-play section? It's insane how many games there are in there. Insane. You could theoretically never have to spend a cent buying a console.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
The industry's just changed, and it's, I think, part of that whole dichotomy, which I don't know if you guys were talking about it because I was just AFK a sec, but like in that universe where Xbox doesn't have exclusives, and in that universe where there are more games to play than really is necessary, to be honest. Things like Xbox Game Pass are not the selling point that perhaps there would have been a while ago, you know, and because I don't have time to play all this shit. So I think Xbox Game Pass needs to be more of a tool used to enhance your experience rather than just, oh, here's a shitload of games you don't have time to play, you know. I don't think it works in that context anymore like it did before before and during the pandemic. During the pandemic, yeah, people had more free time. Like if you eliminate the 2 hours commute every day, you've got more time to play games. So maybe people felt that way, a certain way about it back then. But now there's like more games than ever. A lot of the games that were backed up during the pandemic have launched now or are launching. And there's more games out there to play than there is free time. Like, I haven't finished Indiana Jones yet. I mean,
neither have I.
I haven't finished. I only installed Dragon Age Vanguard the other day because I was just like, man, I don't have time to play something that's mediocre. That's another thing too. Like, there's no room for AA or mediocre anymore. Like, back in the old days, I might have bothered to struggle through Dragon Age the Vanguard, but not now. There's just no way in hell that I'm going to waste my time playing this absolute parade of mid in a universe where there's just so many other options, and for a lot of people, free options too. So the industry is definitely different, and I suppose what we're experiencing with Xbox right now is the great pivot, you know. And I think a lot of the multiplats we're seeing hit PlayStation and Nintendo soon, supposedly it revealed this week according to rumors. A lot of those things are sort of aimed towards funding the pivot to some degree. So I think, like, when Xbox, this is my prediction, right? This is just a prediction. My prediction is once Xbox has got its house in order, I think we possibly start seeing exclusives become relevant again. Just because they're doing exclusives now doesn't mean they're going to need to do them forever. Just because they've stopped doing exclusives now doesn't mean they're necessarily, in my opinion, going to stop doing them forever. I think the reason they've stopped doing them for now is because they need the money to fund a more forward-facing platform, at least in the short to medium, maybe even long term. But I do think, like, if they do manage to get everything in order, they do manage to grow cloud to a point where they don't even need other platforms. If Sony does do something like spectacularly fucks up the PS6, maybe they ship a PS6 that has some kind of deadly hardware flaw. I do think Xbox still has that capacity in them to pivot, you know. But I just think a lot of what's...
I reckon they would, though.
Yeah.
You reckon they can put that genie back in the bottle?
I think they can, yeah. I mean, I think that...
No, I don't think so. No,
I think so.
If that genie's out of the bottle, it's gone for. You can't put it back in. You can't open up Pandora's box and close it again.
You're still going to get Xbox exclusives, albeit timed. And it's not like
you're the one that said they were incidental. Yeah,
there will be. But, like, Microsoft can just be like, oh, well, it was never incidental. Jez was a liar. You know? They haven't fully committed to this idea of never ever having an exclusive again. They've never put that to paper. That's something I put out there, you know.
Sure. Sure, and who knows what the future holds? But I will tell you, the day Master Chief Collection shows up at a Switch 2 reveal and they announce it for PlayStation 5, there's going to be a very interesting day on Twitter for the Xbox community. That what a lot of people consider the soul of Xbox, the reason it even still exists to this day, is now a multi-platform game. Granted, you're gonna have people will be like, "Oh, it's just Master Chief Collection. It's not the new one, or it's not going to be the new one," and you know, it's 10 years old at this point, or what have you. Like, you could make all those arguments, but if it's like you're gonna put Master Chief Collection there, why wouldn't you put the next Halo there? You know, especially because it's like, the success of Halo is centered around the multiplayer. Like, people will talk about the single player and talk about like what they want to see and what the story's told with Master Chief and all that sort of stuff. But the health of the studio and what Microsoft wants is the multiplayer, the money and all that stuff that comes with it. I'm not saying the single player is not important, because it is. But what's important to us and what's important to the business, two totally separate things. So in this day and age of like, hey, you want as many people to play something as possible, so you put it in many places as possible. Like if you're already going to put the Halo games there, and then you have a Halo 7 that comes out with the multiplayer component, they're going to be like, why aren't we putting this on Switch and PlayStation, PC? Why aren't we just going to put this everywhere? It would be what's best for the game to make as much money as possible. Right? So it's like, I don't know. I feel like once you kind of step down this path, you're just on this path. And and 5 years from now, if you decide, oh, well, the path is fraught with peril and we didn't see some of these obstacles here and we want to pivot, doesn't matter. Like you've been on that path and people have made their decisions. It's their money after all. They're the consumer, and they're like, well, I don't want to, like that's the problem with this. It's like
I completely disagree. Utterly disagree.
I don't know, Nick. What do you think? You agree with Jez or you agree with me on this one?
Oh, I said I don't know if they can put that genie back in the bottle.
It's not a genie. It's not a genie. It's a business strategic decision.
We all know it's a business strategic decision, but
it's just a phrase.
It's just
a phrase.
I know it's a phrase, but it's
I'm
not
even imagining.
It's not a switch you can no longer ever turn off.
But dude, I'm also
if the business conditions exist where exclusives would be better again, they will do it. But it
sure.
If the conditions don't exist, then fair enough. But my argument hinges on this idea that maybe the business conditions can flip, like on a dime. Like nobody expected the PS3 to flop, Nobody expected Red Ring of Death. You never know what's going to happen in business.
Nobody expected the Wii U to flop, and it did. But
nobody expected Halo on PlayStation, but it looks like it's happening.
But the funny thing is, though, like I had mentioned this on our show, like so Project Latitude is what it is, but these concepts aren't foreign to Microsoft. Like I had heard many years ago that Microsoft were discussing the idea of putting Halo Infinite's multiplayer on PlayStation and because it was free to play, and using that almost like an ad for Halo Infinite to say, hey, like their thought process at the time was
to try and sell the single player.
Yeah, to try and sell the single player. Let's put the multiplayer on PlayStation, so we have a nice big base between PlayStation and Xbox and PC. And hey, if those PlayStation gamers want the campaign, better get an Xbox or better get Game Pass or a PC and Game Pass, whatever, and use it in. And that was back, that DM was years ago, long before anyone had thoughts of them going multi and whatever. But even things like Master Chief Collection on Switch, I had heard stuff about that again many years ago. Like Microsoft's always thought about this stuff and discussed it internally.
Satya Nadella himself said like he doesn't like exclusives, and that was like during the pandemic.
Hates exclusives, yeah. Yeah. But again, that to me, that's still a fundamental lack of understanding of how the industry works. Like while I say exclusives are overrated, you still need them. You do still need to have them. I just think their importance is somewhat overinflated in the hardcore gaming sphere. Just a little bit overrated. But you can't not have any at all. Do you know what I mean? It's a balancing act. But yeah, I don't know. If everyone knows my thoughts on it by now. If it was up to me, I'd lock all that shit down.
Would you lock Call of Duty down?
Yeah, well, remember Nick was one of those right prep away.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
Minecraft.
Jez, remember Nick when this happened? Nick's like, make Call of Duty exclusive, and then when Phil came out and said it's going to remain multi-platform, Nick was one of those people that was like, just tell the regulators whatever they want, and then when it's done, they're going to pull the rug out from underneath them and be like, haha, COD's exclusive. Yeah, just do what you want.
Yep.
They did not expect. Yeah, remember the deal was going to be done in September of 2022, right?
Yeah. Mate, they thought it was going to be over. Microsoft did not expect it to drag out for 2 years.
No, they didn't.
It dragged out a long time, yeah.
They did not expect it to drag out for 2 years. Like my guy was like, no, this will be done pretty quick. Like this should be over pretty quick. I'm like, oh, good, because fuck.
And
it
then
dragged
all of a
out
sudden
so
it
long.
just dragged out, and
I mean, we did get some cool. We did get Phil versus Jim and PlayStation versus Xbox like grudge match, which was fun, right?
oh look, I got something. I got something out of it because something I had leaked ages ago came out through that FTC trial, and everyone would have called me a liar if it had never come out.
What was that?
And this goes back to that things change and things get cancelled. So a couple of years ago, I had leaked
Sega, right? Was it?
No. A couple of years ago, I think it was. Now I'd have to check my OneNote, but I had leaked that there was a PlayStation exclusive Marvel multiplayer game in the works. And my belief, I said at the time, I said my source believes, they've speculated that it's by Insomniac. It's an Insomniac multiplayer game based on Marvel, exclusive to PlayStation. Caused a little bit of a ruckus at the time, and then no one heard anything about it. Came out in the FTC trial that Spider-Man multiplayer game by Insomniac got cancelled.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, if it wasn't for that trial, everyone would have been like, you made it up, you lied, you this, you that. And this is what I mean, man. Shit changes. Shit changes. Shit happens behind the scenes.
You know why? You know why that Spider-Man game was canceled, right?
What's that?
Because Insomniac probably can't support.
I was told. Basically, it wasn't fun to play, and they couldn't figure out how to make it fun.
Really?
Like it just wasn't fun. Yeah.
Damn.
Interesting.
That's an indictment.
That's one of the main reasons someone had reached out to me. He was like, you know why they canceled that? I was like, why? He's like, because they couldn't figure out how to make the game fun. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's a big problem.
Speaking of which, what we've seen of Wolverine so far that's leaked out doesn't look very fun either.
Yeah, I don't know if I want a Wolverine that is just basically in an open world climbing rooftops and stuff. Like Wolverine to me, that's a linear ass game.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. That's why X-Men Origins will forever be the best Wolverine game.
Is it going to be X-rated? Like, well, not X-rated, but you know what I mean. Is it going to be violent?
It's supposed to be, but I mean, they just changed creative directors. I know there's a lot of people expecting it to come this year. I don't think there's any chance. This is this year.
No way.
2026. But yeah, I saw some of that stuff. I'm like, I don't want an open world Wolverine where you're climbing around buildings, and it's like that needed to be. And I get it why they would, because the open world structure is already built within Insomniac, and it's what they do, and it's what they're good at. But it's like, Wolverine needs to be a linear game. But then if it's a linear game, it's only 8 hours long when you can kind of extend Spider-Man to 30 or whatever. Like the whole pushback of, like what Sean Layden's been talking about for a while now about like, hey, video games, they're just too long and they cost too much money. Yeah. And what do you do to pull back on it? And it's like, does Wolverine need to be a 30-hour open world game? Probably not.
No.
But they're probably looking at it like to justify the cost and all that stuff. Maybe it does. I don't know.
I would have expected Wolverine to be more God of War and less Spider-Man. But what we've seen so far looks very much more Spider-Man and less God of War.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how new creative directors, does the vision spin, or are we too late for that, or?
I don't know, man. But I mean, the funny thing is, the best Wolverine game ever made was a God of War clone, which was X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was literally what a great game.
The best movie games
that game is amazing.
There was, and made by Raven, who makes Warzone, which is like
correct.
Ugh.
Correct. Now, are we going to get to I'm just noticing there's some questions.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of the show now. I mean,
we can go on for hours. We got Nick here.
Yeah, we could do, but it's also getting late.
You also have stuff to do.
Yeah, like sleep.
Let's see. We have Joaquin wants to know about your thoughts about on Ubisoft. What they're going through,
Yeah, are you into Ubisoft games, Nick? Are you
Ubisoft?
Are you aware of the drama?
It's funny. I say no, but then it turns out I kind of do play a lot of Ubisoft games. Like, spoiler alert:
Persia 2024 Game of the Year. Yes,
Game of the Year for 2024. Prince of Persia
are combined on this one. We are in line
too. It's Grubs too.
Amazing game.
Just unbelievable.
Sucks that they had to disband the team because nobody fucking bought the game.
No, yeah, none of you fucking dickheads bought it. Like the best game, and no one bought it.
I don't think I bought it. I don't know it.
Oh,
that was a year ago. A year ago, Greatness came out, right?
You know who leaked that game?
Was it you?
Yep, I leaked it.
Oh,
like
damn.
2 years ago, I leaked that there was a new 2D Prince of Persia in development, very, very early stages.
Damn.
So I have a special affinity with that game.
I love Prince of Persia: Lost Crown.
Oh my god! If I could wipe my memory and like my save file and start all over again, oh my god!
Yeah, if I could do that for a game, probably be BioShock 1 or Ori Will and the Wisps.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. BioShock 1's a good one.
Would you kindly,
man? Holy shit!
Yeah.
Just that moment when he said, "Would you kindly?" and then you went back inside your memory and remembered all the times he said, "Would you kindly?" to you. I was like,
bro, spoilers.
Fucking shit.
Spoilers.
I was like, no.
You haven't played BioShock 1?
It came out in 2007.
I know, right? Where is BioShock? Where is BioShock 4?
Yeah, why haven't you leaked the new BioShock, man?
Well, I did leak something about it.
Oh, really? What's that?
Yeah, a few years ago that Sony were trying to money hat it.
Oh, right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd said that Sony were trying to money hat the new BioShock. But again, that was years ago. Again, things change. Who the hell knows what's going on now?
If the new BioShock ever comes out, fuck.
Yeah, if it ever comes out, they haven't even officially announced it, have they?
Nope.
Have they not?
No,
I thought they had.
No. I think Collins talked about it on his podcast, but it sounds like that game's gone through dev hell.
Oof.
You know, and there's Space BioShock coming out this year, next year. Judas. Yeah.
You know who should? You know they should get on making a new BioShock. I think.
Who?
The team, Night Dive Studios. Put them on it.
A new one.
Yeah, a new one.
Hold on, are we confusing studios here?
No, the studio that made the System Shock remakes.
Well, yeah, that's a studio that just ports old games.
Yeah, they didn't just port System Shock. They did a lot of work to improve it. They get it, is my point. They get.
But they're still ultimately like Nixes. They're still ultimately like
they're
your
a small
studio. Type studio.
They're a small studio, but this could be like their breakout game, similar to Bloober Team stepping up with Silent Hill 2, which again is not their game, but like Silent Hill 2 really put Bloober Team on the map, and now I went from not being interested in their next game, their upcoming game, that sort of sci-fi Resident Evil game they're making. I was not interested in that.
Funny how many
I wouldn't
times
have been
that
interested
happens for a
in that
studio?
I mean,
like a studio. I've just noticed this happened a bit recently. Like Double Helix's breakout games were both existing remake IPs, Strider and Killer Instinct. I was like, oh wow, I just realized that happens a fair bit. Yeah, now Amazon just, oh my god, I'm so annoyed. I'm still so annoyed about that. I'm still so annoyed about that.
Yeah,
like Double Helix had been around forever, and they were this unknown studio that hadn't really done a great deal that was like of note, and then all of a sudden Killer Instinct and Strider come out, and it's like, whoa, here we go. And then Amazon's like, no. You can do nothing for a while now, and then disappear.
Another one of the questions is from Nerds and Other Legends.
Did we even really answer the Ubisoft question?
No, you didn't answer the Ubisoft question.
Because we just got distracted by Prince of Persia talk.
Which is why we could go on the podcast for 4 hours because we just randomly talk about shit.
Yeah.
I do.
That's why anytime I'm on XboxEra, it's like a 5-hour podcast.
That's why we didn't get you on the other day, because you were going to come on right towards the end, and John was already exhausted. He's like, if Rand comes on, this podcast is going to go for another 3 hours. It's like, nah.
We're not doing that today. So give us your thoughts on Ubisoft.
Yes, my thoughts on Ubisoft. It turns out I do like Ubisoft games. I love Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell, Immortals, Rayman.
Rayman Legends. What a game.
Yeah, it turns out I like more of their IP than I actually realized.
They got some, but Nick, they got some problems. Like they're going through some shit, you know.
I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft was having a look at them at
one point and probably saw what was going on and went, ugh.
Yeah, and saw 17,000 employees, and we're like, no thanks.
Nope, not going there.
They've got some of the worst return per employee of any company that size. I read somewhere.
They're huge. It's crazy how big they are.
Yeah. Very, very unproductive as well, for their size.
But there definitely was a time where I would have liked if Microsoft had acquired them. There was a time where I thought
at one point, 360 generation, I think they were my favorite publisher. They were just putting out a whole bunch of cool new IPs and stuff.
Yeah,
right, from Assassin's Creed to Watch Dogs to Division, and like they were just on top. Far Cry, like, I mean, essentially their open world formula was copied by everybody in the industry.
Yeah,
PlayStation, anybody who was doing an open world game copied their formula. Yeah,
Nintendo copied them with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
I have to say though, I've never really loved a Ubisoft game. Like I've always played like their games.
Play Prince of Persia.
Black Flag, I enjoyed that.
Which Tom Henderson I think we're just reported today about the remake coming this fall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, he talked about that when he was on Xbox too. He said, what was it, Jez? He said there's 10 planned Assassin's Creed games in the next 5 years.
It's obscene. People are going to be
well,
sick
you better
of
hope Assassin's Creed Shadows does well first off, because
kill the franchise.
That game doesn't.
But like the last time I truly loved a game they'd made, and I was kind of like sort of taken aback by it, and like, oh wow, this is great, was I Am Alive, which I don't think a lot of people really enjoyed that. But I really loved that. That game had such a vibe, and it had like a kind of soul that Ubisoft games that I've played typically lack. But I admit, I haven't played the original Splinter Cell. I never really liked any of their military shooters. And
hold on, wait, you've never played Splinter Cell?
No, not really. Not really.
I mean,
no, not really.
He gives me shit about Splinter Cell all the time.
When I was a kid, I saw Splinter Cell when it was first released, and I thought, that's just a Metal Gear Solid knockoff.
Yeah, it's like, are you Metal Gear guy or are you a Splinter Cell guy? There's always that divide. Like, which one do you like? You Metal Gear or Splinter Cell?
Yeah, well, I was
both.
So I just saw it and thought, this is just some like cheap knockoff that some indie studios made. It looks terrible, compared to Metal Gear, the greatness of Hideo Kojima, So I was just kind of like, nah, I'm not interested,
Splinter Cell was incredible.
I enjoyed Far Cry 5 quite a lot, actually. And I actually enjoyed Far Cry Primal because it was a bit different, right? Well, that's the thing about Ubisoft stuff. Like, it's you're always looking for, like, how is it going to be a bit different? Like, the vast majority of the Assassin's Creed games blend into each other and are just utterly forgettable, And by the time Valhalla had come out...
Outland?
Play what, sorry?
Did you ever play Outland?
Nope.
Outland.
Never heard of it.
It was a Metroidvania published by Ubisoft and developed by Housemarque for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3.
Never heard of it. But I have a huge blind spot of the 360 era because I was fully in my World of Warcraft era then. There was just nothing. My 360 gathered dust for the most part. It was Battlefield Bad Company 2 that pulled me back to my Xbox 360, I think. But
interesting. No, Ubisoft's a good developer. They are, and I like I've always said on our show that they're the only company that's more of an industry punching bag than Microsoft is Ubisoft. They're probably the only one.
I don't know, man. I kind of see Blizzard as the biggest punching bag, even bigger than Microsoft.
No way.
At Raw, did you see this? At Raw this week, someone like within camera shot in the front row.
Diablo 3 greater than Diablo 4.
No, Diablo 2 better than Diablo 4. Like in the front row, it's like, bro, like the hype for Diablo 4 has gone mainstream, man. But also Bethesda. Like I feel like Bethesda catches a lot of hate on social media and Reddit and stuff. Like way more hate than they deserve.
Wow, guess what? Guess what they're associated with now? Xbox. Imagine that.
No, but even before the Xbox stuff, like everyone was mad at them over Fallout 76 and the paid mod stuff, and
sure, yeah,
I don't know.
And it just works from Phil, from Todd or whatever, right?
It just works. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but you talk about Ubisoft games you love, like the Prince of Persia, like even the older Prince of Persia's, like Sands of Time. You know, like I love like Assassin's Creed 2 and like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like the Splinter Cell, like Pandora Tomorrow, especially like Chaos Theory.
I still haven't played Blacklist.
You know, back when like that multiplayer was transformative, like nobody was doing spies versus mercs. It was such like an incredible experience, and yeah, I mean, like Far Cry 5 is probably my favorite Far Cry. I really like Far Cry 5.
I did enjoy that actually,
but it's
Didn't
just
they own the Tetris license at one point?
They might have, yeah, they might have.
Well, imagine him fumbling that bag.
They might have.
But maybe it's my imagination, but I swear they had Tetris for a period.
Yeah, maybe.
They could have. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Ubisoft. I mean, they better hope Assassin's Creed Shadows works out for them and is good, because it looks like Star Wars Outlaws bombed, which is surprising for a Star Wars game, right? You know, and they got all these big plans for Assassin's Creed, but
2014, they grabbed the license for Tetris. They took it from EA.
And lost.
They also seem like a very poorly mismanaged company. I remember Tom saying that at one point there was like 9 battle royales in development at the company.
That's wild.
And like none of them have come out, and I think all of them were canceled or close to being canceled.
That's like desperate, like throw everything in the kitchen sink and see what sticks.
I mean, X-Defiant came out, and remember X-Defiant was supposed to kill Call of Duty. Game didn't even last a year.
Supposed to compete with God, yeah. I didn't mind it. I mean, it was okay when I played it.
You know, but that's also I'm always very cautious on like, hey, is it, because remember when Defiant came out, it was a big success, so many players in the first month. So when I look at like Marvel Rivals and how well it's doing, I'm like, I still in the back of my mind think, well, Defiant did well at the beginning too, you know. But I do think it seems like Marvels will have a stronger hold, mainly because I think people are tired of Overwatch, and this is going to give them the Overwatch fix, also with like the Marvel IP characters that everybody loves.
Also, NetEase knows how to make a service game, man.
Yeah,
they know what people want. They know to make sexy characters, you know, stuff like that.
And they are sexy.
We've got another
more questions.
We got Nerds and Legends. He says, "What's the sentiment among your sources, Nick? How do they feel about the direction Xbox is taking?"
How do I answer this question?
Carefully.
There are a lot of people within Microsoft that don't like the direction Microsoft is taking with Xbox internally.
Yeah.
And I would suggest a lot of these leaks, not all of them, but a lot of these leaks are probably coming from them, because some of them might want to bring it down and like have it not happen.
That is often the case. I find when I was getting a lot of platform leaks, it was often from people who were like, we want to save our project, you know, like the Xbox career system, for example. I think a lot of the Blizzard leaks were also like, you know, disgruntled former staff who've been laid off, stuff like that. But you know, it's what happens in a big company.
My Prince of Persia leak was from a staff member that had left Ubisoft. He's like, I'm gone now. There's a new 2D Prince of Persia being developed. Go for it. I was like, okay. That's where it came from.
Nerds and Other Legends also wants to know, hey, Nick, what's the greatest console ever made? And since we know it's the Dreamcast, what Dreamcast games should be revived on Xbox?
Oh my god. Well, he says Dreamcast game, so it doesn't have to be a Microsoft IP, I guess. Power Stone. Which we're getting ports of that in the Marvel vs. Capcom. No, in the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2,
which wasn't going to come to Xbox, but then
oh my god,
is coming to Xbox. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. That was Jez Corden. Remember when Jez Corden was out there saying, "No, they're going to work on it." You know,
dude, I crusaded for that shit, man. Into like with people I know.
Man,
I was like, you got to solve this.
I messaged Phil directly. I was like, bro, I'm sorry. I just messaged him directly. I'm like, I wouldn't normally do this, but you need to get this on Xbox. Find a way. Please get this on Xbox. You have to.
Yeah,
Mate, I'm only going to do that for Power Stone. I'm not going to do it for anything else. I'm only going to do it for Power Stone.
I was kind of like in my article today. I kind of slipped in at the end. We really need Monster Hunter Stories on Xbox. You know, because there's a lot of games that are still missing on the platform that are really annoying. But you know, on the topic of Dreamcast games, though, I want to ask, because you guys it sounds like you guys know about Dreamcast shit, right? Because
oh my god, what a console.
I'm going to confess something, man. I contributed to the death of Dreamcast. I contributed to the death.
How'd you do that?
By what? Buying a PlayStation 2?
When I was a kid,
How'd you do that?
Chipped Dreamcasts were
You
really...
didn't even have to chip them.
Well,
You didn't even have to chip them in the end.
Yeah, okay, it wasn't chipped. It was a boot disc, right?
Yes. Yes.
So they were really popular in my school. There was kids who used to go around just, you know, being like, hey, here's a boot disc for like £3. So then I had a disc that had like, I don't know, 30 games on it or something like that. But so I played Code Veronica on my Dreamcast. But there was this other game I played, and I've got no idea what it was. It was also zombies and stuff like that. But it was like, it was third person. I think it was a sort of hack and slash kind of game.
Yep.
And to this day, I don't have a clue what the fuck it was. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Yes, I think it's called Zombie Revenge.
Zombie Revenge.
I believe the one you're talking about is called Zombie Revenge. I think. But Google it and check and see if it triggers your memory. It's technically part of the House of the Dead universe.
Yes! That's it! Oh my god! Yeah, that's it, man.
Yes.
That was class. I love that game.
It's part of the House of the Dead universe. So it's like House of the Dead, but like Streets of Rage. It's like a 3D scrolling beat 'em up thing. I remember House of the Dead.
Yeah, I remember the UI. Oh man, that's crazy. I mean, that's good. Yeah. That's fortuitous because they announced, aren't they doing something with House of the Dead franchise, porting it to modern systems? I'm sure I read that recently.
Remake 2. They're remaking number 2.
Oh, that's
so House of the Dead remake of the first game already exists on Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. They're doing number 2, but it's not Sega doing it, weirdly. You know what you should play, Jez? If you can get it. I don't know if you have a Dreamcast.
I don't.
You might not.
The only console I have is Xbox Series X. That's all I've got on my PC. That's all I've got.
I reckon a game you would have really liked on Dreamcast was Record of Lodoss War. So it was this Diablo clone. Shameless Diablo clone. I still have it to this day. I still have a copy of Record of Lodoss War. Really cool game. What else was on Dreamcast? Power Stone's like one of my all-time favorites. Virtua Tennis. I mean, all of that was the Dreamcast was just a Sega/Capcom machine. Capcom was so. I mean, it was amazing, but their support of the Dreamcast, in hindsight, in retrospect, their support of the Dreamcast was insane. How much they supported it. It was basically if Capcom had made a console themselves, it would have just been the Dreamcast. That is how much they supported the Dreamcast. Like, there are games on Dreamcast that no other console got from Capcom. Like Cannon Spike. I still don't think that got ported to any other console. So Cannon Spike, much like Zombie Revenge is like set in the House of the Dead universe, Cannon Spike is set in the Street Fighter universe, and it's this twin stick arcade shooty thing with Cammy and what's his name, Charlie in it. Loved Cannon Spike, absolutely loved Cannon Spike. It was just the Dreamcast was just. I mean, the Dreamcast is why I'm an Xbox fan, effectively. So
how
when the Dreamcast died, I was obviously devastated. And then when the Xbox came along, that felt like the natural progression, the natural evolution of the Dreamcast. So I just naturally gravitated towards Xbox because the Dreamcast was the first proper online console. The Dreamcast, was the one that had the 4 controller ports where PlayStation 2 was still trying to sell you a multi-tap. yeah, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, the Dreamcast had the VMU, the memory card that went into the controller. Guess which other console did that? There was a lot of synergy there between the two, and it had Microsoft Windows CE as part of its platform. So it just, Xbox felt like the natural progression of
fair enough
the Dreamcast.
It's weird how Dreamcast guy disagrees with what would have been the natural progression, I think.
It still bothers me that dude has that as his name.
Yeah.
Because, and this isn't me having a go at him, but no self-respecting Sega fanboy, which is what I was. I was a very hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool Sega fanboy, because I grew up in the arcades where Sega dominated during the 80s. No self-respecting Sega fanboy would have gone to PlayStation after the Dreamcast died.
Damn.
I'm still baffled that there are people that went from Dreamcast to PlayStation. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, I had a reason to get a PlayStation 2, and that was Virtua Fighter 4. I don't know why Virtua Fighter 4 never went to Xbox. I found that odd. Like, I assume it was a Sony money hat. But Xbox got all the quirky Sega games. Gun Valkyrie. What was that other one? Jesus. Oh my God, the name escapes me now. But, you know, they got Crazy Taxi 3. They got Shenmue 2. Xbox got all the quirky, unique Sega games. But then for some bizarre reason, Sony got Virtua Fighter 4, which pissed me off to no end. And then Nintendo got Sonic Adventure 2 DX. And then all of a sudden, Nintendo just started getting everything. They got all the sports games, all the Sega sports games. Like, I had no idea that there was a Virtua Striker 3 that was only on GameCube. I just discovered this like a week ago. That there was Virtua Striker 3 on GameCube. I'm like, what the hell? And then there was all these other Sega sports games on GameCube. I'm like, what? When did this happen?
I was always a PlayStation kid at this point. Like, I had within my siblings, we had the Dreamcast, we had the GameCube with 64, but then we had like multiple PlayStations and multiple PS2s.
Wow. Often
like secondhand, and all the games, like, also because PS2s kept breaking. Like,
yes,
like the laser wouldn't read the disc, and then like
worked in retail at the time. I know how many came back, and
it's crazy.
They're lucky social media didn't exist back then.
Yeah, it was wild.
They're very lucky social media didn't exist.
Yeah, it was crazy how temperamental those things were, but it was also like I always had like a couple of games for GameCube or a couple of games for whatever, and it was always about PlayStation. But then like when the PS3 came out, it was just like, this thing's priced me out of the market. So like we all got 360 arcade editions without the hard drive, you know, because they were super cheap. No hard drive, no Wi-Fi, no frills. You know, it was a great move by Microsoft.
Hold on, maybe even no HDMI.
Yeah, I don't think so. It had like the weird SCART cable, which didn't support. I think it supported 480i or something, like some weird resolution. And then the next version came out which supported 720p when that started gaining traction. I remember when I switched my TV to 720p because I didn't even know that it was capable of that. It was only because of the 360 upgrade that I got. And I was like, oh my God, it's like night and day. This is so sharp. And but yeah, I don't know. Let's have one last question before we get out of here.
We got a question from Artemis. He says, I'm hearing that Microsoft for Xbox priority is moving away from supporting Game Pass. They're more focused on selling games as a third-party developer. Any truth?
There's no truth to that. I think like the economics of Game Pass. Yeah. I think the economics of Game Pass are stressed by the lack of individuals that are growing into the platform, and also just the fact that I don't think many people identify as someone who needs 300 games or 350 games or whatever it is. But I think Game Pass is still got potential to grow as a service that, you know, is tied to cloud, you know. So I don't think Game Pass is going anywhere. And I also don't think they're going to get out of hardware. Like I said earlier in the show, like, they've got like projections, all their projections revolve around having a platform and having so much revenue generated by the platform. And and also some of the technology they're building for future games requires them to have a platform, you know, which is like DirectX bound platform features. So there's like a variety of reasons why I don't think a lot of the more apocalyptic takes on Xbox hold water. And I don't know. I think Xbox will be okay. I think it'll all be okay in the end. But
what do you think? What do you think, Nick? Are they getting away from Game Pass? And
I wouldn't have thought so.
I mean, it doesn't seem like
surprised.
it. You know, well, I guess if they like, look, if Call of Duty ended up not being on there, that could be like an indicator, right? Like, but it did. So you will have to see if this year's Call of Duty will be, right? I mean, they've made the statements that like, hey, the Activision games are going to be day one on Game Pass, which, you know, you presumably go on for a while. But as of now, it doesn't look like they're moving away from Game Pass. You know, all their games that I think they're releasing this year are supposed to be day one. Granted, they did rejig the tiers, so if you do want day one games, you have to pay for Ultimate, and that is a change.
For years, we kept getting told they'll never let go of Xbox Live Gold because it's too much money. Why would they let go of Game Pass then?
I mean, because there's this narrative that has emerged, and it's not a new narrative, but it's that nobody on Xbox buys games and nobody on Xbox spends money. And I'm sure maybe you guys saw the Marvel Rivals. There was a tweet from an official like gold account, and it's not like related to Marvel Rivals, but it's like a Marvel Rivals Intel account, right?
Yeah.
That said, revenue for the first month of the game was like $55 million made on Steam, $27 million made on PlayStation 5, and $2 million made on Xbox, right?
And that was based on like Steam user reviews or some shit or something like that. It was based on some really dumb metric.
It was based on the fucking most absurd metrics you can imagine, just like placements in the top 10 of these things. And the reason Xbox's revenue was 1/10 of PlayStation's revenue was because it had 1/10 of the reviews on the store, and how it didn't show up in the top 15 of the Xbox most top paid games, which is like, well, yeah, free-to-play games don't show up in the top paid section. You know, Marvel Rivals is the 7th most played game on Xbox. If you look right now, it is the number 1 most free game on Xbox. But the idea of like, we're going to judge revenue based off a chart position and store reviews is the most fucking ridiculous thing I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah,
but
stupid.
You wouldn't be, but that didn't stop people who have agendas to spread that information wide and being like, look, nobody's spending money on Xbox because they've been brainwashed by Game Pass and not spend any money. So is it even worth it for Marvel Rivals to be on Xbox? Is it even worth it for them to even make games? Because then they get to the thing of like, well, if nobody's spending money on this, it's not even worth putting games on Xbox, right? So it adds that whole thing of like, I see this a lot. And even some of my friends will be like, nobody buys games on Xbox. No, Game Pass has destroyed people. Nobody buys any games on it. And it's like, bro, look at the revenue that they make. You know, before they acquired Activision Blizzard, right now, they have all the money from Activision Blizzard. They make about $23 billion a year, which is a shit ton of money. And it's third in the industry, only behind Tencent and PlayStation. But before they bought ABK, Xbox was making more revenue than Nintendo. So there's always this weird thing about when you talk about who's number one and Xbox is in third place. But like when you sort by revenue, Nintendo's in third place. Nintendo doesn't make anywhere near amount of money. Yeah, I know, right? Like
this whole third place thing, you can still be in third place and be healthy and profitable and all sorts of things.
Thank you, because some people are like, if you're not first, you're last, and it's sort of like Pepsi doesn't sell more than Coke, then Pepsi should just give up, and they should just, we're done. We couldn't outsell Coke, so wrap it up. Stop making. It is a weird thing.
It is so
the same
weird.
thing
about dark rants coming out again.
You know these.
Yeah.
What?
Dark
Dark
brown.
Race.
It's a weird thing. Like, they don't say the same thing about cars. It's like, oh, well, this brand of car doesn't sell as many as this brand of car. They should just give up. It's like, but no, you can still, like, that's the whole point of competition. Like, if just because you don't sell as much as, you know, the dudes that are leading, that doesn't mean you shouldn't exist. You could still be real healthy second or real healthy third, or the industry is big enough for there to be multiple healthy publishers and manufacturers, as long as they don't do stupid things, of course. But I always found that concept that, well, Microsoft's third, that means they're just like doing horribly. That's such a weird sentiment.
Which is weird because they're only third if you judge it off of consoles sold. But if you judge it off of revenue, they're second. And I'm sure if you're judging it off of profit, Nintendo's probably first. Right? Like,
yes, they probably are. Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I saw that being shared around and people talking about it and being like, this is why Xbox, you know, nobody buy. It's like, nobody was doing that stuff. Then how are they making as much money as they are? How are they making that much money before they even bought ABK? Do people like really think this through? And the funny thing is that tweet also had where they got the info, like how they estimated it. And if anybody read it, you'd be like, this is dumb. But nobody reads it because nobody cares. No. It's like nobody reads the articles. They just read the fucking headline. And they don't actually read the minutia of the thing. They just see, you know, Xbox sucks. Oh, 2.7, and it doesn't even make any fucking sense. But, you know, it fits the narrative everybody wants to push. So everybody believes it, you know.
Around.
Yeah.
I just completed third game of the year. Live on the stream.
Yeah, I mean the only games Jez can complete 5 hour NES versions of Final Fantasy.
Bro, this is a huge game. This one was like 20 hours or some shit. Bro.
I went to say something earlier, and again we got distracted, Rand. When we were talking about Final Fantasy games coming to Xbox, it's funny. Like, the only one that I leaked was 16, but I actually had been told that the Pixel Collection was coming, and I told our buddy John.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah, he leaked it to me, bro. Oh wait, who?
Who leaked what to who?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Sika Mechanico. I don't know what you were talking about.
No. Rand and I have I guess you could call them a mutual friend. He used to do a podcast with Rand. Remember Rand?
He used to podcast with me?
That's what you told me.
Who is this?
His Twitter name used to be Mr. Negative.
Oh yeah.
And then
I podcasted with John quite a bit. Yeah, back in.
Yeah, I had told him that the Pixel Collection was coming. Yeah, a while back. I don't know why I didn't leak it publicly. I just wasn't interested, to be honest. Probably because I don't care about Final Fantasy.
Bad taste, as usual.
I tried Final Fantasy. I want to say 12 on PlayStation 2.
That is a wrong one to start with.
That is not a good one to start with. No, sir.
Okay, well, so that was my very first Final Fantasy. I tried 12 and I was like, the fuck is all this fuss about?
12 was the one I skipped. I played. My first was 7, which I think is a lot of people's first, right?
Probably.
My first was 7. I played 8. I played 9. I played 10. Didn't play 11 because the MMO stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't play 12, but I played 13. Didn't play 14, but I played 15. Played 16. But yeah, like 12 was kind of in that. Like even I was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
No thanks to that one.
12 was interesting. Put it that way.
Which is kind of crazy. You know, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Every Final Fantasy game's on Xbox.
Yeah, I like
you can remasters there. 1 through 15's there. 16's about to show up. The remakes.
12 is there. Where's 12?
Yeah, 12 is. Look at it there.
Is on
Zodiac Age.
Yeah.
Zodiac Age.
Yeah.
It's the HD version. Okay. Like if you can see on my screen, like every single one is there. Like 11 isn't there, which is weird. It should be there because it wasn't 360.
The online games, the 11's not there, but
14's there. Dawn Trail. I've also got 15. Wow. I'm currently replaying all the Final Fantasy games. That's
why
I'm
going to remaster 13 because that's the only one that's stuck.
They didn't release it, but it's on back compat. 13 Lightning Returns
4K
and
60 upscale. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you can get every Final Fantasy game on Xbox, but not PlayStation,
except for 11.
We live in.
Yeah, but I don't think you can play 11 anywhere though right now.
Well, that's right. Yeah, 11 doesn't count. But outside of 11,
no.
Once
11's still
comes
live.
to Xbox,
11's still live on PC.
Yeah, but it's not on a current console.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's on a current console, but it still exists.
In terms of the current generation of consoles, Xbox is going to be the only console you can play every Final Fantasy game on.
Once like Rebirth and stuff comes out. Well, before we get out of here,
what a world.
So if we take Nate at his word about Remake and Rebirth coming, I think he said Remake is this year and Rebirth is next year. Also coming to Switch 2, right? It seems like everything's going to come to Switch 2.
What do you think? Everything will come to Switch 2.
Yeah. What do you think they're going to do with the third one then? Which I would imagine is going to be called Final Fantasy VII Reunion, right? Does Sony pay for exclusivity for the third one? Are they at the point where like this partnership's not doing anything for anymore?
Of course they will.
Would it just be multi-platform at that point? And just being like, we're just going to...
believes in that branding. Sony believes in that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously they didn't continue the relationship because, I mean, look what's happening. 16 and all these other games.
Okay, but they were still exclusives for quite a long time.
Well, I mean, Remake was exclusive for a lot longer than Rebirth, though. I mean, Rebirth, if it's coming next year, that's 2 years. That's a lot less than 5.
Still a long time.
Sure, it's a lot less than 5 years, though.
Okay, but I mean, even if the third one is 1 year, that's still a decent amount of time.
Is there a possibility that either Square or Sony kind of look at this and look what happened with Rebirth and this downward sales trajectory and are like, it's not worth it for either of us to lock the third one down for X amount of years. It's not worth it for Sony because it's not going to sell PlayStations, and it's not worth it for Square because they're not going to make enough money. So we'll just be multi-platform.
I think they will. I still think Sony will lock it down personally.
Okay.
Again, and please don't take this as, oh yeah, no, I don't know anything. I'm just saying.
Nick confirms.
Yeah.
Yes. I just think Sony is still very much believes in the console wars. Sony still very much believes in that kind of branding around exclusivity and Final Fantasy being associated with PlayStation. I still think even if it's not super cost effective, I still think they will lock it down. Even if it's just for 6 months, they will still lock it down to keep that image up and that branding up. Because if you have a look at Rebirth, yes, from a sales perspective, it might not have performed whoever who wanted it. But from a branding perspective, it was still associated with PlayStation. It was a PlayStation exclusive that PlayStation had in 2024, and it was in the running for Game of the Year and blah, 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 blah. So it still had that association, and Sony still very firmly believes in that, even if Xbox doesn't. Sony does. So I think they will still lock it down, even if it's just for a much shorter period.
Yeah. And how much are you looking forward to the Switch 2 reveal supposedly this Thursday?
Oh my god, Nintendo are such dickheads. Should I say the DM that I just got?
Yeah, say it.
Sure, why not? I mean, this episode's not going live for a week anyways, but so...
Actually, you know what? I need to be careful because the person said you can't leak this. All I'm going to say is that someone DM'd me. All I'm going to say is that someone DM'd me about the Switch 2. How much can I say?
No one here is going to share. No one here cares that much about Switch. Right, guys? Right. No one cares about Switch. No one here cares about Switch, right, guys? We'll keep it secret for you.
I got some very very, very interesting information about the Switch 2.
Come on, then.
That pissed me off. That pissed me off and annoyed me greatly.
It's not backwards compatible.
Of course, it's back compat.
I can't think about what else would piss you off. I'm trying to work it out now.
It's back. It's definitely back compat. I had originally heard that there was going to be two models, a back compat and a non-back compat one.
I like the PS3
That's
launch.
what I had originally heard. Yes, similar. Yes. I don't know if that's still the case. Ah, shit, I was about to say something I wasn't meant to say just then. No, stop me now, because I'm going to end up slipping. I'm going to end up having one of those brain fades, and I'm going to say something I'm not supposed to say.
Come on, you coward.
But yeah.
Speak up.
I had originally heard there was supposed to be the two models, which I've said this before publicly, that a back compat and a non-back compat.
I
wonder if they're still doing that.
Be
interesting.
Sure is.
Did you see this? I just got sent this Reddit post about Joaquin sent it to me about from The Information. It's got a quote here about Satya Nadella considered winding down Xbox's gaming business in 2021, chose to pursue an acquisition-based strategy and said, "And we're aiming for 100 million Game Pass subscribers by 2030."
That's funny.
Who said that?
A website called The Information.
I could.
In 2021, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella faced a choice involving the company's Xbox and cloud gaming business. The company could either acquire major game studios to drive more subscribers to Game Pass subscription service, or it could wind down its game business entirely, Nadella told two people at the time. Nadella took the first path, acquiring Elder Scrolls maker Bethesda Studios for $7 billion, Call of Duty maker Activision for $75.4 billion in 2023.
So you're telling me Satya saved Xbox then?
Microsoft also hoped the Activision deal would attract game developers to rent as Azure cloud servers, but Activision wasn't using Azure prior to the deal, and it still rents servers from Google Cloud and Amazon Web Services while primarily relying on its own servers for development. According to someone with direct knowledge on the situation, another person briefed on it. Before completing the Activision acquisition, Microsoft targeted having over 100 million Game Pass subscribers by 2030, meaning it would have to triple its current subscriber base in 5 years, or grow at a rate of 40% annually, which would be faster than its rate of growth every year since 2020.
You know what would have got them to get to 100 million?
Monster Hunter
Stories. They locked everything down.
Yeah.
If they'd locked everything down, could have got to 100 million then.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I say, I don't think people need 350 games. I really don't. I think the way you could have got Xbox Game Pass to 100 million whatever subscribers they wanted is to buy a video streaming platform. You know, buy Warner Brothers and then tie Game Pass to, you know, streaming TV shows. Because I don't think people need hundreds of games, bro. I just don't think so. But anyways, listen, right. We've been here for 1 million hours and I need to go to bed. Right.
It hasn't even been 3 yet.
Shut up. So we are winding down now. Thanks everybody who tuned in for XB2+1. It is midnight here, so I'm going to go to sleep. But thank you so much, Nick, for your time and your expertise.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me, finally.
And your spooky teases and hints and all that kind of stuff. Thanks to everyone on Patreon.
Yeah, I nearly slipped up there.
Yeah. Give us one little hint or teaser before we get out of here. Come on, you got something. You got something you can tease us with, Nick. I know you do.
No, I can't. I got to be careful because I'm not like you. I don't like check this stuff. I don't check this stuff properly, and I don't.
I don't fucking check nothing properly. That's grand, man. I've fucked up loads of times, but fair enough. Won't pressure you.
Yeah, because I rely so solely on these people, I do my best to not piss them off.
Nah, it's completely fine. But anyways, we're gonna get out of here. By the time this is gonna go out later on Spotify, but if you can get it a few days early if you subscribe to patreon.com/XB2. It's we've got a free tier, and I think the this is the access to these XB2 shows early is on a lower tier. So get it over there, and it supports the show, supports me and Rand, helps put the Diet Coke in my fridge, so I appreciate that.
Hey.
Yeah, love a bit of that. And also, yeah, we'll be back on Friday as usual, whether you're listening to the show this week or next week. And yeah, smash the like button, I suppose, and take care, everybody. You got anything to say, Rand?
No. Later, guys.
And where can people find you online, Nick? And also, this information is going to be in the description too for those who want to check it out.
XboxEra.com for all of our stuff. And I'm at @special_Nick on Twitter. Most of you probably know that.
Brillos.
But go to XboxEra.com.
I really need to drop in the forums there.
Stuff's going up soon. Yeah, you do.
10. Yeah, I need to drop in the forums
we're
there
doing all.
sometimes.
We're doing all our top 10 articles and videos this week. And I have managed to get mine done.
Top 10 what exactly?
Games of the year.
Ah, right. You mean of last year?
2020. Yeah, Game of the Year for 2024. This is when you're supposed to do it. Jan and Feb, not in bloody December.
Yeah, I mean, that would make more sense, wouldn't it? Anyways, we're going to rock on out of here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Nick. Thanks, Rand.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone in the chat. Thanks, everyone who dropped memberships, namely Scarcely Relevant. And everyone who, and Rave Damos as well, with a nice Jezzy's T-Fun message there. So we'll see you guys next time. Keep it gaming.
Yeah, for now.